Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description. Deadly Drinking Pirate by Darren. Ace was wondering about that sake he stole from those pirates before allowing his little brother Luffy drink it when they became brothers. And now Luffy has gained a new ability, one that defies the laws of devil fruits and yet makes him even stronger than before. Watch this drunk-proof pirate become the king of them all. Mature Luffy duel. Devil fruit. Luffy/Harim, I don't own anything, adios.
Enough. Robin finally released the emotions bubbling and boiling inside. No one said a word. Yes, everything the captain says is the truth. I am the only person who uncovered the weapons in the Void Century, so the Gorosei blew up my home island and hunted me for 20 years. Robin confessed, and the sight of her breaking down was enough to shatter anyone's heart. Those who do have a heart, that is. I mean it when I have no home and I have nowhere else to go. I can only be here, on this ship. I hope you'll understand. With that, silence spread across the King's Gourd once again. I do. Luffy finally spoke. I can't kick you off my ship. I did cause you to come to me and, as a man, I will take responsibility. Welcome aboard. Luffy. The crew sure took their time. I am serious, Luffy. She is a bloodthirsty killer. She said it herself. She is too dangerous. She is too scary. She is. Luffy felt like bursting a blood vein from hearing Usopp yell in his ear that next morning. She also is listening to you scream your throat dry. Luffy spoke, just as the same. Then he got a teasing smirk. Are you really scared of Robin, or are you looking for an excuse to have your girlfriend in a private room? Usopp just grew red, and before he could stutter, Kaya appeared out of nowhere and checked the sniper's throat. For once I have something to check up on rather than your imaginary syndromes, Usopp-kun. Luffy felt satisfied to see such confidence in the doctor in training. Come on, boyfriend. I need to practice what sensei has been couching me in. Kaya dragged Usopp into the cabins while the sniper didn't as much as make a peep. This made it difficult if he was too scared or too proud of himself. Your crew's certainty is interesting, Captain-san. Luffy didn't show as much as a frown when the newest member came out to join him on the deck. And what is with that sour face? Like I said when you broke down and begged to be one of us, I will take it like a man, which includes Nami-chan having me sleep on the floor just for last night. Luffy said in a deadpan, which Robin just giggled. Just for me? Are you trying to make me your mistress, Captain-san? Robin teased Luffy, and before the captain could retort, something fell on his straw hat. And countless more soon rained down on the ship. This grabbed the attention of everyone else doing whatever, and they all looked up to see a sight that could only be in their nightmares. Why the hell is a ship falling out of the fucking sky? XXXXX. In just 1 hour, the Straw Hats ran themselves ragged trying to protect the King's Gourd from the falling debris. They needed to furl the sails to prevent any damage and stir the rubber to portside in order for the falling vessel to land in the ocean water. And somehow, the salty water drenched on the deck felt a little relieving compared to the wood, metal, and even skeletons falling. Does this happen often, Luffy-kun? Nami crawled over to her captain, boyfriend, who also couldn't feel his legs after the daylight nightmare. Hopefully this wouldn't call for another sleepless night on the floor. I've learned to not ask that, Nami-chan. I can only say that it is possible within the Grand Line, just not every day. But all the while, Luffy was observing the mysterious woman Robin attempt to piece a human skull as if a jigsaw puzzle. On the bright side, this will be like a rain of treasure for our new member. Nami said nothing and instead pulled Luffy by the head, giving him a huge smooch. If I didn't love you and that you gave me a big sister to hang out with, I will think you hired Robin to sleep with you instead. Luffy chuckled nervously, but you are taking this like the man you are. Keep it up, because I can't keep myself waiting for another memorable night. Luffy couldn't even make a mumble since he was getting really comfy with his head in his girlfriend's arms. Meanwhile, Robin completed the human skull belonging to a skeleton that nearly scared the life out of Usopp and Kaya, falling right in front of them. From this alone, I say that this was a young man in life, around mid-30s and mid-40s. As for the wood making the coffin, he died around 2 centuries ago. If the crew weren't shaken to the core about that analysis, then the falling ship had already done the job. Unfortunately, this is all I can determine from the wreckage. I doubt that there will be a clue as to where it all fell from. I've got one. Luffy spoke up, with his head out of Nami's arms. It practically blinded me when the ship tried to sink us. The captain promptly reached into his shirt and pulled out an ancient map. On the top, in big bold letters, read, Skypia. XXXXX. Okay guys. I know this town. I want to check it out for information about this island in the sky, with a maximum of 3 on land. Luffy spoke loud and clear once the King's Gourd had docked at the piers of what seemed to be more of a dirty alley rather than a dignified settlement. They called this place, Mocktown. It's a den for the worst kind you can think of. Why, you mean murderers and cold-blooded killers, Luffy? Usopp shuddered just a little. Thieves and arsonists. And raw. Luffy raised his hand to halt the sniper, and a nod of the head was the answer. All of a sudden, the entire crew felt a little uneasy. Even the likes of Kuro, Jin and even Robin. Then who do you suggest to come with you, Captain San? The mysterious woman queried, and Luffy didn't even need to think for a second on the answer. I already decided. Nami and Kuro will come on shore while the rest of you make sure that nobody tries anything funny with our ship. Luffy responded, all in one breath. As for the response, Nami had nothing to say, which won't speak of doubt for her boyfriend's decision, and Kuro felt a little cramped, staying in the shadows the whole time while in the Grand Line. With the will to argue with Luffy already died a while ago, the straw hat wearing pirate joined down to the docks with Nami in hand. Kuro was more than able to make the jump himself. And so, they made their way through the town, and so far, they found not any helpful info but insults and a couple of bizarre people. Both of these really rubbed Luffy the wrong way, for reasons he wasn't talking. The first was the supposed champion of Mocktown, beating every person he spots and standing on rooftops like he's actually owned the town. He was called Jesus Burgess, an unusually big, tall, broad-chested, broad-shouldered, tan-skinned, muscular man, with a broad upper body and a thin lower body in comparison. He has curly violet hair reaching down to his shoulders and always wears a dark brown mask with orange decorations on it, which covers the upper part of his face but reveals his eyes and his nose. He appears to be based on luchador wrestlers based on his name and the face mask of Mexican origin. He wore a sleeveless black shirt and a pair of white pants with ruffles coming from the base then reaching up to his knees. He also wears black bands tied around both elbows. He was also wearing the champion-style belts that was worn by wrestlers to show off. Still, it was a good chance that it was a fake, there for decoration. And then there was the sickest person any of them ever met, literally. He was called Dr. Q, and he made one bad first impression by being terribly sick that he couldn't walk. He thanked the Straw Hats by offering an apple from his basket, which most were no different than bombs. Thankfully, Luffy's streak of simply good luck allowed him to choose and eat a dud. Doc Q is a very large man and is always seen traveling on the back of his horse Stronger, who is, similarly, an unusually large horse. His nose is slightly longer than normal. His face appears always unshaven, and there are straight purple tattoos coming from his hairline to the corners of his eyes. He has long and curly gray hair, and constantly has a pallid look about him, acting as though he is on the verge of death. He is seen wearing a black fur coat, a wide-brimmed, black beaten hat, and what appears Enjiman's noose around his neck. He would appear to wear a green turtleneck, and from under his coat sprouts what looks to be a brown robe, under which his hairy legs are visible. He has black, large buckled shoes. On his back he carries a long, cylindrical bag, in which he keeps his scythe. Nami and Kuro were glad to be away from those two, but Luffy a haunting hunch that this will not be the last, just the first. But by now, the trio were getting a little tired of all the dead ends and the bars filled with laughter. They decided to get a drink in a tavern this time around. And they were able to find one where the customers and staff were truly minding their own business and the food wasn't bad. I don't know anything about an island in the sky, but there is a hermit who lives in the boonies just outside Mocktown. He was known by his ancestor who also claimed there was an island in the sky. Thankfully, this bartender was far more helpful than all the others and didn't try to laugh at the idea of Skypia. Then Luffy saw someone also sitting at the bar, which made his chest hair twitch and itch. Nami, stay close. Kuro, stay on edge. Luffy spoke quietly and his companions responded just as silent while their captain faced the object of his ire. It was an extremely tall man with a massive build, as his body is round with relatively thin limbs. He has a big mouth with several broken or missing teeth, a pronounced crooked nose and a very large and hairy chest and torso. Long, thick, woolly black hair falls down the back of his neck, underneath a black bandana, and a small scruffy black beard grows around his jawline. He is also tall, practically twice Luffy's height. Luffy moved from his seat and drink to sit next to this man. Is the food not good? You seem to be in a bad mood, Teach. The large man didn't budge from his seat, only his eyes moved to gaze on Luffy with a look of suppressed anger and resentment. Yes, I know you. And I know what you intend to do despite me getting the throne first. And if I find out what you've done to your former commander, I will hunt you like a wild animal. I can guarantee that you won't hide for long. The large started to shake, as if the cauldron bubbling inside his dirty raw hide was starting to boil. All it took was a jab strong enough of the whistling tea kettle to burst. Bartender, I will take all your pies to go and make it snappy. The large man dumped a sack that was filled with gold coins on the counter so hard that cracks appeared, which prompted the bartender to rush into his kitchen. It only took a few seconds for a large bag of boxed pies to be carried out by the bartender. The large man just grabbed the handle and stomped out of the tavern. When Luffy returned to his original seat, Nami was especially worried for the scowl on her boyfriend's face. She was able to get Luffy to loosen up with a rub of his leg and clutching his respective hand. Luffy-kun, who is that man who? He is very dangerous despite what he may seem to be, guys. Don't be fooled to think that he is just a dirty fatso who hadn't showered in weeks. He is powerful enough to become the next Shichibuki, warlord. If I refused the invitation. It was frightening to hear Luffy speak so little and yet so much about that man who stormed off with all the pies in the tavern. Instead, I refused to let him replace Crocodile. He is more interested in the privileges that the title grants him, which includes a certain prison filled with potential future crewmates. This silenced his companions. They both knew what Luffy was talking about. Still, the day had trouble just waiting to pop out, or in this case, the doors being opened roughly and rather loudly. When the drinking patrons looked around, they all had faces like the devil himself has arrived, and with a sizable company at that. If you all are good pieces of trash that you will stay where you are and tell us where is the bastard that our boss wants, one of the lackeys shouted out to the patrons, and nobody said a word. We mean it, don't mess with us, not when our captain is here, Bellamy the hyena. Now the drinking customers were really looking scared, and this time, Luffy finally decided to see what was the fire all about. Bellamy is a tall man with tan skin and short, unkempt blonde hair. He wore white pants, a green sash with markings, and a pink sleeveless shirt with a navy blue pirate captain's coat over it. He has a scar above his right eye and tattoos of eye-like designs on his arms. He has a recognizable grin and seems to stick out his tongue in a taunting manner. I heard that Crocodile was kicked off his comfy throne and someone already started to stink it with their cockiness. So where is he? Bellamy spoke in a tone spoke true about his savage-looking face that resembled a hyena. Where is Straw Hat Luffy? XXXXX. No one spoke a word, but once they heard the faint sound of paper rustling, they saw the man of the hour looking through a collection of what seemed to be wanted posters. Hell knows where he got them. Bellamy, the big-time rookie, with a bounty of 55 million berries, and a much better-looking mug here than there. Bellamy wasn't stupid, he knew that he found the one he was after, and in just a couple of sentences, he was both complimented and insulted by the very same man. Wish I can say the same damn thing about you. You are the one who replaced Crocodile, don't make me laugh. Good, I am terrible at jokes and puns. Luffy retorted. And what should a person capable of defeating a Shichibuki look like? Oh, that's right, you don't know and don't care. Bellamy was at least adequate at hiding his irritation. I know a Shichibuki and you are nothing at his level. I guess that you must have somehow forged that newspaper with your face as the new Shichibuki. Bellamy sneered at Luffy, silently wondering why he wasn't getting anywhere. You look so pathetic that I can just take you title by taking your head. Bellamy laughed while he reared a lazy punch, aimed at Luffy's face. And maybe your girlfriend too, ha ha. Bellamy's arms suddenly turned into a giant coil and sprung out like a released spring, all the while the entire gang was laughing along with their captain. Until the sound of bones breaking was heard, but was followed by the hollering of a certain big-time rookie. The sight was a sad one. The hyena himself was on the floor, kneeing in pain as he tried to nurse his badly bruised fist. One that was ugly looking with contorted fingers. Then Bellamy heard footsteps heading his way, but with each one, came loud thuds. The kind bodies make when they fall like flies. But the arrogant rookie couldn't ignore the pain in his hand to see what was going on until a blackened hand grasped his own face. I may be a pirate. I may be smaller than you. I may even be a snot-nosed brat. But, Luffy spoke as he tightened his grip on Bellamy's face, and lifted up the arrogant pirate off the floor. I doubt that I am insulting the Shichibuki as a whole, and especially not the one you are willing to slave at his feet despite your pride. Bellamy didn't know what was scaring him more, that he was nothing but dead weight compared to Luffy, whom he tried to prove was a fraud, or that the entire tavern floor was littered with patrons and his own crewmates who were foaming at the mouth. Not to mention that Luffy's entire dominate arm was completely black and shone like marble. Now then, this is not for me. This is for ruining a good drink and for making a big deal out of something you claim to be not worth your time. You are going to pay for insulting us men, as good pirates, and even my girlfriend. Luffy spoke again, with a serious authoritarian tone like that of a stoic god casting judgment. And then Bellamy felt the worst pain ever. Half of his ribs were cracked around one large point of impact. Yet, as if a ripple, the rest of his bones shook and cracked. His flesh was terribly bruised, more than that unfortunate hand used just a few moments ago. Finally, a geyser of life liquid gushed out of his in a split second before being sent into the ruins of a building which couldn't withstand the impact. And that was where he also joined his gang, unconscious and unable to even see the sky look down on their pitiable being. Later, Luffy left some money for the meal and for all the trouble he caused when he outstaged the town star in a bloody fashion. Kuro was a little disappointed as he wanted to slice up all those people that laughed at them, but Luffy's direct orders were to not kill. And Kuro still remembered why he shouldn't disobey his captain. Nami was just ecstatic that he could brag to all the girls back on the ship on how Luffy was making her look good. He even allowed her to help herself to all the pocket change from all those he knocked out back in the tavern. Then Luffy stopped in his step, like he stepped in something that sent shivers up his spine, and yet he didn't frown, but with the smile of a serial killer who has all the cards in his favor. Hello again, Teach. Luffy spoke as if malice dripped from his mouth, turning dreadfully slow to face that dirty man from the bar. And this time, he had that sickened doctor and that large wrestler by his side. There was also that sniper with a strange eyepiece and rifle. Or do you prefer to be called Blackbeard? As if the word triggered something in the man. Darkness soon emerged to form a living outline around Teach's body. Then Luffy stopped in his step, like he stepped in something that sent shivers up his spine. And yet he didn't frown, but with the smile of a serial killer who has all the cards in his favor. Hello again, Teach. Luffy spoke as if malice dripped from his mouth, turning dreadfully slow to face that dirty man from the bar. And this time, he had that sickened doctor and that large wrestler by his side. There was also that sniper with a strange eyepiece and rifle. Or do you prefer to be called Blackbeard? As if the word triggered something in the man. Darkness soon emerged to form a living outline around Teach's body. Luffy-kun, Nami's tone spoke for what she and Kuro were feeling their bones. What the hell is that? Luffy didn't answer immediately, just glaring at Blackbeard and his gang that continued to do the same. It is a power that the scumbag was willing to commit murder on Whitebeard's own ship to steal for himself. Pure darkness. Luffy muttered. Think of him now as a stinking, walking, living and talking black hole. Then how, Kuro was a genius and proud of it as well as his skill in assassination while moving too fast for the naked eye to catch up. But fighting a virtual human black hole was something that he couldn't even dream of. Yet Luffy didn't back down and just set an edged eye towards the former captain. Nami, get to high ground with a good distance between you and these shitholes. Luffy spoke again and in a tone that his crew recognized to be the captain tone. One that Luffy only used when he is going all out. Kuro, get to the King's Gourd and return with all no devil fruit fighters. This is a fight where us eaters are in the most danger, even myself. Understood. Kuro knew that tone of voice and moved in his signature blur, not even caring that he was reduced to delivery boy. It was only until he got the rest of the gang to join the party with him. You can send in an entire battle fleet, Mugiwara, Straw Hat, and it won't be enough. Teach spoke once Kuro had left their sights. We may be some but we already destroyed an entire country just to show our power. Your crew is no threat to us, only you yourself. Teach apparently didn't acknowledge Nami moving to the top of one of the buildings a lot like a sniper does. It is just to get her close to the clouds as possible. No, the real focus of attention was Luffy himself who tried to contain a chuckle. Teach almost sounded like Shanks' first mate when he totaled a gang of bandits with relative ease over 10 years ago. Keyword being, almost, instead of hot air like now, that was spoken with skill. And Luffy swore to only speak with skill from that day onward. Then show me. Show me the power of a black hole. Show me the dark fruit, Luffy proclaimed while drawing out his katanas, of which the blades suddenly got engulfed in flames. Meanwhile, he also drew his saber which its blade also changed and looked as if it was frozen with dry ice. In the meantime, I will show you power of the drunk fruit. XXXXX. And while the two captains were just about to battle, Nami was still hiding on top one of the houses, staring them both down. Then her concentration was broken to the sound of gunshots and her widened when a hole appeared in her chest, yet Nami suddenly phased out, like a mirage. Down below, I wonder if fate will make this count as a miss since fate never lets me miss. It was the gunman that appeared aside Blackbeard along with Giant Wrestler and the sickly doctor who rides an equally sick horse. His name was Van Augur, the sniper of the pirates if that wasn't obvious enough. Augur is a rather thin man of abnormal height, with light brown hair that hangs down to his lower neck. He appears calm all the time, even in battles, and his typical expression is generally emotionless. His eyebrows are almost always furrowed in what looks like a saddened expression, and he rarely smiles. The left lens of the black glasses he wears is a normal, rectangular eyepiece, but the right side is circular and holds what appears to be a crosshair. He sports a large black hat, protruding out to both sides. Curiously, its shape bears an uncanny resemblance to an upturned boat's hull. Van Augur is constantly wearing a long black cape, under which he wears a button-up, pale lavender shirt with loose sleeves, and simple black pants, with a maroon belt with an aqua outline that goes over a small portion of his shirt. He also wears black shoes. Due to the size of his rifle, named Senriku, he carries it leaned against his shoulder. And while this lanky man was talking to himself about fate, Nami appeared on another one of the houses. And she was proud of herself for fooling such a marksman with a simple illusion, a mirage if you would. Yet, Nami truly was there before her mirage was shot instead. I need to remember to kiss Luffy-kun so hard that his face will peel off. Now I can show how strong women can be like men. Then Nami's danger sense roared for her to look up, and when she did, the sun was blocked by the giant wrestler himself, with both of his hands ready to crumble the house to the ground. And crumble the house, he did. Yet the only body among the rubble was the giant admiring his handiwork. That was because, once again, Nami appeared at the top of yet another building that was still in one piece. This is getting serious. I need to start fighting back before. Nami was going to get battle ready when she felt the same danger sense. Yet this time, there was no giant from the sky or a gunshot from the earth. Instead, the building was sliced and diced like carrots on a cutting board. This time, Nami jumped high into the air rather than vanishing like one of her mirages. Down below, she saw the sickly doctor and his horse. And Nami saw that the doctor had a sickle out. How is he so strong when he's so sick that both he and his horse collapse and cough up blood? Nami wished that she wasn't wasting time thinking when more gunshots were heard and Nami had to fly around what's left of the town to avoid Augur and his oversized revolver. You can't keep up this little game, girl. Fate has decided that you will die and it is best that you accept it. This caused Nami to scowl to the point that her face was covered in painful wrinkles. Then she descended as fast a meteor down to the wooden ground, with her fist aimed for an earth-shaking impact. And despite her appearance, Nami caused the ground to ripple and sent the Blackbeard pirates flying back. This was yet another thing that Nami had learned from her generously pampering boyfriend. If you want to talk about fate and dying, then I will have to agree, Nami said, getting up and seeing that she did good work. But I am a woman and I decide everything for myself, including how I will die. I am not a weakling, I get to choose. Not waiting for a response, Nami got into a one-arm handstand. Renkyaku. Dabarudoro, storm leg, double draw. Nami twisted and spun her legs around to create one large cut on her left side and then moved to make another on the right side. And these sharp air blades easily sliced through the abandoned buildings. Thankfully Nami can sense that the houses were all truly empty, but Nami knew that it didn't help when another giant shadow covered her. It was the same giant, only that had an entire building in his hands, ready to crush her. Even though Nami was able to avoid that attack with Soru, she suddenly felt her legs give out with the feeling of cold hard steel grazing the flesh. In any case, Nami fell to the ground and had to slid on the rumble in order to stop. Adding insult to injury, literally, Nami felt the wreckage around her being shot at point blank while she still was dazed from the sudden loss of feeling in her legs. The only silver lining that Nami never lost her bow staff and got it ready until she saw all three of the Blackbeard pirates staring down on her. And they had their weapons to go for the killing. Just when Nami thought she was going to go down swinging, she was spared. Both Ogre and Burgess had to move away from their Targov bullets that forced them to dance a good distance away. The navigator looked up and felt like a princess rescued from danger by a handsome hero, a whole bundle of them. One thing was for sure, the cavalry has just arrived. XXXXX. Meanwhile, in the opposite side of the town. Sarashugo, searing after drink slash, houses were literally cut to pieces by what seemed to be a blade made of fire by how the wreckage were littered with flames around the edges where they were cut. All the while, a pudgy large man was running over the cut houses as if he was trying to outrun a forest fire. He's running the only thing you can do, teach? Instead of a forest fire, the dirty old man turned to sneer at a certain straw hat wearing pirate, whose katana was still aflame. You have no chance of capturing my brother if you can't even take my heat. You are getting really annoying, boy, and it is bad enough that you set my brilliant plan back by years. Now you are getting under my skin. Teach, henceforth will be known as Blackbeard, growled with even more darkness surrounded him, making the outline even more thick. I rather not, I bet it is even more disgusting under there than out here. And it is dirty and stinky as it is. Luffy retorted with another jab, even faked disgust and waved his hand in front of his nose. But it still got his opponent even more enraged. That's does it, I was going to save this for your brother, my former commander, Blackbeard roared, not even noticing that Luffy twitched an eyebrow on his stoic face. But you have forced my hand, Baraku Horu, black hole, from his shoes. A thick blanket of darkness emerged and scattered in all directions from Blackbeard's feet. While the darkness swirled around where Luffy was standing, the rest of the wrecked houses and buildings were slowly sinking into the darkness. And the sounds of wood creaking and glass shattering invaded Luffy's ears. Like a poor chorus, this irritated the pirate slightly. All the while, Blackbeard had the smile of a madman and laughed while the surroundings around his enemy were slowly being destroyed. You see, darkness is power. Darkness is gravity. With this power, I will be able to destroy the world. Blackbeard hollered once that portion of the town were sucked in. And if you want to know what has happened to it all, then witness it. Liberation. Luffy then saw the town buildings emerge from atop Blackbeard's head as if a geyser. Do you see the unbeatable power that I possess? Blackbeard laughed as it rained wreckage, landing everywhere but where he was standing and also Luffy too, apparently. This is the power of darkness, the strongest force on this planet. And I am darkness. Suddenly, the man of darkness felt pain on his right side that also seemed to be freezing cold. Korisuku sake no surasudo, freeze burn sake thrust, Luffy shouted from his spot, this time using his rapier that was covered in dry ice. While you do put on a good show, how is that you are invincible if you still can draw blood and you still could feel pain? I thought that you were a logia user like Ace? While Luffy mocked Blackbeard, the large dirty man was twitching through the pain and suddenly got up on his feet. And the freezing ice had vanished. This logia fruit is very powerful as it is rather unique. Unlike most logia fruits which allow the user to let attack pass through, mine absorbs attacks as well physical trauma and pain. Blackbeard muttered while trying to get back from that sudden attack. But there is just one more thing that this power can absorb, Kuruzu, Black Vortex. Luffy knew that he was in trouble when he felt gravity trying to pull him towards Blackbeard, and the force was so strong that it was irresistible. Nothing escapes gravity, especially that of a black hole. But once the black hole touches you, Blackbeard only needed to grasp Luffy's shoulder and the former's prey realized what has happened to him. Right before the old man sent Luffy flying back to where the Straw Hat Captain was just standing. You will lose your powers. That is that power of the dark fruit. Yet Blackbeard's answer wasn't moans of pain but the sound of the wreckage being sliced and diced. I will admit that the power is as scary as I imagined. But you still have no way to stop me from using this power. Busohoku. Suridoku, armament. Sharpen. Luffy's katana and rapier both turned black and their edges look especially sharp. Now take this. Haikori Jujika, fire and ice king cross. Blackbeard saw a slash of fire and a slash of ice merge with each other to form a cross-scissor attack. Kuruzu. Panicking just a little, Blackbeard used gravity to try and absorb the frontal attack. Keyword being, try, and the dirty pirate knew that when his other side was terribly slashed just as he activated his Kuruzu move. Azuma Dorinku Doriru, Eastern Drink Drill. Luffy had used the pulling force of the gravity to get in an especially swift stab and slash at Blackbeard, with the latter focused on the cross attack. The only reason I am not afraid of you or your power is that you haven't awakened it, and trust me, I have. All Blackbeard did was growl and get up like before, with yet more darkness surrounding him. I am going to take your head even if I have to sink this entire island. Luffy just smirked and grinded his two blades together, setting off flames and dry ice on the katana and rapier respectively. Bring it, you bloody traitor. XXXXX back in the other side of the town. How dare, a man's low voice glided across the wreckage with the wind before the giant wrestler crashed. The three of you bastards, that was then followed by the sickly doctor who flew over the giant along with his horse. Tried to harm Nami Swan. Then the sniper skid next to the giant. It would seem that we were mistaken by the idiot with the sun hair. Fate didn't make it clear that the cook will be as bad as our prey. Then Augur seemed to never lose his cool. Which could be said for Burgess who only got a faint footprint on his steaming face. Of course, Dr. Q took his time getting back since Stronger was as sick as he was. As for the Straw Hats, can't you do anything without acting an idiot, Blondie? Zoro said with lack of content for Sanji's still love-struck tendencies while helping Nami back to her feet. The cook tried to do it himself only to be slapped by said woman. It was so sad that Sanji was still not trustworthy with a woman, especially one that has a man already. More stinking pirates to stand in our way? I am angry enough to punch fate after I do you in. Burgess charged in. As angry as a bull seeing nothing but red. But his charge was halted hard by Sanji and a certain man that was known as a demon in the East Blue. Fine then, you ogre. Jin said with his trademark, hollow smile while using his tonfas to keep Burgess from budging. Let's see you dance, with the devil and hell's best cook. This time, Sanji didn't make a remark but joined Jin in making a devilish smile on their faces. Enough to even make Burgess flinch. Meanwhile, please tell me you are joking. Zoro said with clear content as he stared at Dr. Q and Stronger with Kuro looking no more amused. We had to fight those two. I wish I was joking but while I know how to make plans, I don't know how to even make a pun. The former pirate captain responded. And to honest, I can't believe the large amount of life coming out of this deathly man. Cough cough. Dr. Q let out yet another several pints of blood from his mouth before finally speaking. Sorry young ones but fate has decided that we should fight. And both me and Stronger can't fight fate, only you. The horse made a sound of agreement before coughing up blood all the same. And we are going to strike. Whatever you draw your blades or not. Zoro and Kuro both knew from that point that they let their eyes fool them when their opponent appeared in front of them with a double-bladed scythe ready to take heads off. And while both swordsmen can block that attack, but I am wanted a piece of him for myself, if you don't mind. As long as you don't get in our way, Zoro said, getting into his stance while Kuro finally revealed his cat claws. They have been repaired and upgraded since one gloved pair of blades had been broken off all the way back in the East Blue. But these claws will be able to withstand even an elephant's foot stepping on them, or better yet a dinosaur. Or Luffy will have our next Chopper. Got it guys. Dr. Q had everyone in a loop on how he could be so sick and yet so alive at the same time. But facing a being that was a cross between a human war veteran and a full-grown reindeer was something beyond his imagination. Finally, Augur was left facing not one but two fellow marksmen. And before he could fire off his rifle, the sniper had to move to dodge gunshots from the other sniper that had a very long nose while moving his head back to evade Frank's bullets, only for one to explode loud and hard in his face. You think that you and your little gang are hot stuff for picking on our captain? You just never met pirates like us before, punk. So, you better be ready. Ready to face your death unless you are better than this. Usopp said, his legs and his voice no long shaking. All the while, pointing the tip of his rifle at Augur and hiding his self-satisfied smile for his clear bravery. Yet, before any more conflicts could start off, rifle, the excitement was shattered, like an ice sheet with a heavy boulder on it, when one of the houses exploded and out came a certain large dirty man that had a fist to the face really hard. If you wanted to go for our fists, then you should have said so. It was, of course, Luffy stepping over the rumble and even had his hand on a post to make it look cooler. But for the record, touch my blades and you will regret. Even though Luffy's sudden change from smug to scary had disturbed everyone, even Blackbeard's crewmates somehow, the walking black hole himself was growling like an animal crossed. How dare you? Blackbeard said quietly yet also manically, as if he was losing his grip. How dare you be so smug with me? I sailed with Whitebeard for 20 years. I am your senior. You're better. You're just a snot-nosed bastard who can't even sail the Grand Line. How it was possible nobody cared, but they could have sworn that both captains gave off different auras that clashed. I know, teach. Luffy spoke as if he was the Shinigami himself. I know everything. And you are truly walking into your own grave if you keep this up. I am already out of mercy while you are out of steam. You also are out of luck, both you and your stinking boy club you call crew. This must have been a cranking point because Blackbeard practically erupted with darkness. That's it, forget your bounty. You will be nothing but dust for your insolence. Blackbeard used his darkness to suck up the rumble like a vacuum cleaner and sent it flying at Luffy at supersonic speeds. The young pirate simply sliced the bits of wood and brick into harmless pieces. Yet that was when Blackbeard appeared, fast for a fat guy, and ready to grab Luffy's head with his darkness. However, this was not his lucky day and Blackbeard knew that when he was sent flying hard by something big and something that stung at his flesh. If anyone is going to take Mugiwara's head, Blackbeard grunted in confusion while Luffy hid a smirk as the voice was familiar to the latter and not the former. It is going to be the White Hunter. And let me show you, pirate scum, how the White Hunter does his work. Smoke soon filled the wrecked Mocktown, with a certain smoker standing beside Luffy, both staring at Blackbeard. If anyone is going to take Mugiwara's head, Blackbeard grunted in confusion while Luffy hid a smirk as the voice was familiar to the latter and not the former. It is going to be the White Hunter. And let me show you, pirate scum, how the White Hunter does his work. Smoke soon filled the wrecked Mocktown, with a certain smoker standing beside Luffy, both staring at Blackbeard. So, Commodore, do I have the pleasure of thanking you for getting the scum out of the way? Luffy made this comment towards Smoker's direction and the Marine had to grin his teeth. It still felt insulting to have a pirate, Shinshibuki, royal pirate warlord, or not, talk to him that casually. You can stuff it in your throat and croak like a toad, Mugiwara. We are just doing our jobs and while you with the government, I still don't trust your kind. Smoker spoke like the strict grump that he projects himself as. So, do you have anything on this fat ass of a scumbag? Plenty. That single word was spoke with so much verbal venom that you will think that it will drip out and on Luffy's lips. You seem to hold a grudge, Mugiwara. What did this Blackbeard do to you? Smoker asked in genuine curiosity. He never seen a pirate show so much hatred onto a single person in all his career. He did what half of your Marine Corps been doing for years. He backstabbed a fellow sailor and abandoned ship to save his own skin. Luffy spoke and this time, Smoker was too shocked to retort. He reviewed the reports and profiles on every Marine Luffy personally sank his fists into. They all had spots of being corrupted, tainted by greed and selfishness. And he is the one who had sights on taking Crocodile's place as one of the Shichibuki, 7 royal warlords. If I didn't bargain with the Gorosei, 5-star elders. A few days ago, Luffy spoke and Smoker suddenly felt a surge of anger and disbelief. But instead of letting his lid blow, Smoker got his bearings together. Somehow you didn't surprise me anymore, Mugiwara, and you always seem to have a reason for everything you've done. Due to the circumstances, Luffy hid his smirk. He just heard his Marine rival competent him. So, I don't care what you want to do, just don't get in my way. Then move it. Luffy suddenly shouted and shoved Smoker across the rubble and moved himself to dodge yet another airborne landslide of garbage. While you were monologuing worse than a comic book villain, the fatso nearly got the drop on us. Learn some awareness for crying out loud. Whatever. Smoker grumbled, digging himself out of the rubble as if he was actually covered in leaves. Hoedo Auto, white out. Smoker used one of his signature moves to try and ensure Teach, however. Kuruzu, black vortex. Teach used gravity to free himself from the smoke cloud that also got him, and also made for more ammo to use later. You are more hard-headed and idiotic than Mugiwara and even myself. I knew that the world government was looking for an excuse to hide Mugiwara's actions in Alabastra, defeating Crocodile, by promoting the one Marine who did nothing. Hoedo Buro, white blow. Teach was interrupted when Smoker used his powers to land a swift attack with similar force to that of a missile. I guess you were right, for once, Mugiwara. Smoker remarked without even bothering to look at the straw hat wearing pirate. He still has an image to keep. Now then, Blackbeard, Smoker addressed the fatso of a pirate getting back up without as much as a bruise. It is poetic that you will face me, the Hikario, White Hunter. So let's see if white beats black or otherwise. XXXXX elsewhere in Mocktown, man. Usopp took a customary 2 seconds to let out a breath. What does it take to beat these guys? They just keep getting up. Usopp then moved to dodge a large body sliding past him. I know. Especially that old man with his horse. Usopp turned to see who sent the otherwise unbeatable champion of Mocktown flying. It was Chopper, still in his master point. Ever since we started fighting, the old sick man already lost 20 pints of blood. Just what is he? But neither of them had any time to ponder when they moved out of the way of a building that nearly crashed on them. It was Burgess, the champion of Mocktown, and he wasn't happy the slightest. Don't you bastards dare send me back and then talk shit about my crewmates. Onihoyo, ogre bear hug. Burgess intended to use his large, bear-like arms to crush both Usopp and Chopper. But he underestimated their teamwork. Dongon Dorarushato, air bullet drill shot, Usopp proclaimed and, using just his dormant arm, shot out of his custom rifle not a normal bullet round but one that shook the atmosphere it was soaring through. While Burgess dodged it despite his size, that was a mistake on his own accord as he still took damage from the surrounding impact. In fact, Burgess was nearly buried in the rumble from the sheer force that completely covered his front side. Still, the ogre champion barely got a change to wipe his nosebleed when Chopper, shadow covered his disgusting face. Sakura Shokuju Aikyo, Sakura tree planting impact. Chopper used both of his impressive arms to land a hand hammer right on Burgess's face, with enough strength to plant an entire tree like the move's namesake. Yet it didn't finish the job. Going after a fighter's face, that is underhanded even for our Blackbeard pirates. You all are worse than pirates. Burgess finally got his feet and unsuccessfully tried to return punches, but Chopper and Usopp resorted to dodging those attacks, thanks to weeks of hellish training by their captain. And hold still for fuck's sake, grah. Usopp and Chopper didn't know to be surprised or deadpan to see Sanji's foot on where Burgess was just hurt. You ugly bastard. That blast nearly sent Nami CWHAN to the filth and garbage on the shitty ground. You will pay. Called it. That was an oddly shared thought, and while you are doing that, we will be elsewhere. Usopp spoke and walked away along with Chopper with the other Blackbeard pirates in mind. Piss off or you won't get even polished rocks for your dinner. Mocktown had an echo that was heard clearly for hours, not that anyone cared. The sounds of gunshots and blades dancing were louder and sounder, more reliving somehow. Just what is up with this sniper and those eyes? Kuro was occupied with Van Augur, trying to get close, but the calm gunman was always a centimeter close to hitting the former pirate captain. And each of those shots were powerful enough to destroy a large pile of garbage and can even level one of the wooden buildings. Then Kuro's eyes widened, feeling someone had sent him a message to his head. One telling him to go for the side of Augur. The next instant second came with a gunshot not in front of Kuro but behind him. This one had met Augur's latest deadly blow perfectly and even stunned the sniper for just a moment. But Kuro was still as fast as in the East Blue, one that scared even his own former crew. And he took the chance to sink his Nekote, cat claws, in Augur's bare side. Also, Kuro was still the tactical genius from before and intermediately figured out who was responsible for giving him that opening. Looking up and behind, Kuro had the urge to smirk at how Usopp was standing above him and wasn't even shaking in the wind. Never thought that this day will come, Usopp. Took the both of us long enough, Kuro. The Straw Hat Sniper responded with no more fear, not when he just aided the one man that Usopp thought he was going to hate for the rest of his life. Perhaps even Kaya can make amends, but that will be up for time to tell. Now then, Usopp then jumped off the top of the building, walked over to Kuro's side and popped out the same hidden blade he used against a pair of assassins in the Sandy Kingdom. Even Kuro himself marveled at the simple yet beautiful blade. A miniature sword even that shone in the sun. Let's finish this. Once Augur got back up, his face didn't even twitch at the flesh wound staining his clothes. Not even when he saw him with claws out, with distance that didn't give even a man like Augur enough time to take a shot. So, the Blackbeard sniper resorted to blocking those blades with his own oversized rifle, showing that it was more durable than it looks. He did notice that Kuro was pressing with only one of his clawed gloves but couldn't ponder much when his rifle was hit with another blade into his right side. Psyche. Usopp smirked and, with strength that defied his petite and slim arms, managed to force Augur's rifle to the left, which had the mouth of the rifle. When Usopp pulled the trigger, Augur was able to dodge by moving to the left. The latter had assumed that Kuro won't dare to use his other set of blades on Usopp to get to him. But, to his eventual shock, Kuro leapt over Usopp with the balance and grace of an actual cat. This once again left Augur with no room or time to dodge and felt his left side also slashed terribly. But this time, pain also surged from impact to Augur's kneecaps, courtesy of a swift and strong swipe of Kuro's leg. And yet he didn't fall on his legs. Augur was able to correct them using the blunt of his rifle. Damn. That was all Kuro could say. An augur had a vicious smirk on his mouth. "There are no weaklings in our crew. The captain will never allow one to join." Augur spoke and aimed his rifle again. "And I still have enough rounds to blow this town into the ocean. Come and see what fate has decided for us." Finally, there was Zoro, Nami and Jin against Doc Q and his horse Stronger. I am no doctor, but just how is that shithead so sick that he coughs up blood but has the strength to cut through the crap around us like paper? Zoro shouted in disbelief and annoyance, that his attacks were deflected by Doc Q's double-bladed scythe. I agree. I was never able to use even half of my strength when I was half-starved back in the East Blue. Jin had a strange fondness for this battle somehow, as if he was facing a fighter who had the appearance of being not afoot but his waist in the grave. Not to mention that the horse, Stronger, was supposed to be sick like the Blackbeard doctor, but Jin couldn't even strike at the legs with his tonfas. "I think that we already established that this four are like us, only darker and eviler," Nami shouted back, blocking the scythe thanks to her trusty staff and some Busashoku haki, armament haki, to make it hard enough that a blade can't even scratch it. Too bad that Doc Q was as fast as he is surprising strong. She had no room to use any of her weather magic. "It is fate that keeps me alive, as we were chosen to be the best there. Our captain is going to be at the top with us as the strongest crew in the world," Doc Q proclaimed, even though his solemn look didn't match the ambition quite much. Then, "Move, Stronger." The sickly doctor commanded his equally sick horse to jump back when someone landed in the middle of the fight. "I am disappointed and insulted by you, both calling yourself a doctor and not even treating your stead." Chopper appeared in his master form to once again thought to match himself against Doc Q. A doctor versus doctor battle, if you will. "And this time, you aren't going to sick your ogre on me again." Chopper then sent out a hail of hoofs that were darkened with haki, yet each were blocked by Doc Q's scythe. "I think that the doctor doesn't need all of us," Jin said. "As much as I want to keep it this pathetic doctor, I am going after someone with more meat." And with that, Jin headed over to where the wrestler was occupied with a certain blonde cook. "And I will get back above, where I am most at home in this stinking battle," Nami said before vanishing in a blur. This left Zoro with Chopper and Doc Q. Damn it. They are just sugarcoating this, and I guess that it is difficult to figure out who is the strongest under the boss this time. Zoro mumbled to himself, "Hey Chopper." The swordsman charged, briefly taking away the reindeer doctor's attention away from their shared foe. Sanjiraku Pondo Ho, 36-pound cannon. Zoro unleashed only one of his 3 swords and unleashed something that he had been perfecting from his hellish training from his captain. And he mastered it to the point that the flying slash attack moved around even Chopper's master point, forming a closing spiral right in front of the reindeer fighter. And Chopper understood where this was going and added his own attack into the mix. Sakura Hana Bishian, Sakura Pedal Book Press. Chopper coated his hand with haki to prevent any self-damage while striking the central spiral to add more force, making it a virtual wind cannonball that moved too fast for even Doc Q or his stead to dodge. Shinigami Satsujin Donkey, Grim Reaper Murder Blunt. Yet another impressive feat of the sickly doctor. He was strong enough to not only take in that combined attack but also cancel it out, with the blunt centerpiece of his double-bladed scythe. You can't defy fate, and everything that fate protects can never be harmed. But before either Doc Q or Stronger could budge, another fighter appeared and clashed a blade against the side. "If you want to cut down the pirate hunter, get in line. I have reservations," this swordsman, or rather swordswoman, proclaimed, only to realize that she suddenly was talking to just another pile of rubble. It could only be one person, Tashigi, the one from Logatown and Alabastra. For once, Zoro wasn't annoyed and somehow was amused to see her of all woman to intervene. He then decided, despite the circumstances, to tease her a little. "I heard that you got a promotion along with your stovepipe of a boss," Zoro remarked, smirking to see that Tashigi was trying to ignore him. "I hope that this means you've finally gotten your act together and gotten stronger at all. Or do you still want to be a man?" "Shut it, pirate hunter. You still owe me for the disgrace back in Logatown." Zoro just shook his head in disbelief while Chopper made a self-note to ask about this after the battle. "I know that I never told you that I became a pirate, but after seeing you nuts about swords and looking like my old friend, I couldn't break it to you." Zoro walked up to Tashigi, who was still trying to ignore him, and got into his 3-sword-style stance. "You just had no reason to hide that you were a Marine. Everyone welcomes Marines no matter what, and you know that." "Shut it." The Marine swordswoman muttered and then charged for Doc Q, only for her attempt at a vertical slash to miss, with Stronger moving to the left. Suddenly Chopper appeared again. Sakura Bakupuresu, Sakura Bark Press, Shinigami Satsujin Han, Grim Reaper Murder Block. Once again, Doc Q used his scythe to block the attack, only this time with the side of the staff. Yet that was what Chopper wanted. And Zoro emerged from above with his 2 swords from Logatown descending downward. Suin Comet Ohanma, Twin Comet Hammers. Zoro struck both blades in hand on the side blades, using his enhanced strength to force the weapon and the stead holding both of them down to the ground. That was when Doc Q realized that he, like his sniper crewmate elsewhere, was duped. and saw no way out when Toshigi appeared above Zoro this time and with her personal sword drawn. Doragon Kurashu Kyanan, Dragon Crash Cannon. Toshigi shot and made a stabbing motion with her katana that didn't make contact but instead sent a pressure shot that struck Doc Q right on the chest. And this time, Doc Q couldn't stay on stronger and was sent flying off and into a pile of rubble. Despite this, the sickly doctor got back on his feet, albeit with legs shaking worse than Usopp back in the East Blue. It seems that you are not only guilty of disbelieving in fate, but also for defying it. I can never cure that or forgive anyone for it. Come stronger. The sick horse turned and actually ran while clutching the large scythe in its teeth, all in an instant of coughing up blood. While Doc Q couldn't walk right, he was able to jump back onto stronger and readied his weapon to charge at his enemies. Yet while they weren't else beat them to it. And by means of using another sword to not only block the scythe but also lift both Doc Q and stronger with just his sword, sending them back to the ground. Vice Admiral, sir. Toshigi suddenly gotten stiff in her salute while Jin and Zoro scanned this marine, assuming the cloak spoke true. And this man truly was no pushover and gave off a rather strong aura. Then he started to speak. Straw Hat Pirates, Blackbeard Pirates, my name is Momonga. I am a Vice Admiral of the Marines and it seems that I am needed. Momonga is a man with a black mohawk and a mustache. He wears the standard Marine uniform, consisting of a purple and white pinstripe suit with a coat draped over his shoulders. Underneath his coat lies a dark blue shirt and a light blue tie. He is of average height and very well built. He carries around his weapon of choice, a katana, either attached to his right hip or on his shoulder. But while the Blackbeard Pirates are my prey, I don't trust Shichibuki or anyone who sails with them. Stay out of my way. The pirates either let out a sigh or hide it. They may have a Shichibuki as a captain but it will take a lot more than that to show the Marines that the Straw Hats are no like most pirates. Luffy was right. His status as a Shichibuki was just to give some added protection until his crew was confident to take on the Marines should the captain resign for someone else to take his place. XXXXX back to Smoker and Teach. The former was running low while the latter was still on his legs and now is occupied with Luffy. How the hell does Mugiwara do this? None of my attacks are doing anything. He just sucks them up like a vacuum cleaner. Even when they do hit, that scumbag gets back up again. Does he really feel no pain? Whatever thought he had, Smoker forgot about them when the human flesh bag was sent crashing near him. Damn it, Mugiwara. You're testing my patience? Luffy had the look of slight disappointment. Hate to be blunt but no, you are testing mine. Seriously, I thought the fine marine example such as yourself will find a much more suitable place to get distracted. Smoker growled and barely swallowed his temper. So, what do you suggest we do? You seem to be making the progress here and my attacks are doing jack. Luffy let out a sigh and a sad shake of the head. Smoker, only fools think that feeling no pain is to take no damage and thus they're invincible. They're not and there is a way to exploit this scum's ability to feel no pain. Luffy said vaguely and yet it only took a few seconds for Smoker to realize it. Too bad that this means he is truly unable to fight Teach as his methods are brute force and bruising. Which leaves no wonder to how the scumbag could take them. Now here's my plan. Smoker took a look to see if anyone else is watching before leaning in to Luffy whispering in his ear. And by the time Teach dug himself out, he was really about to blow his lid. This is getting old too fast. Mugiwara. You will see why I was the more suitable Shichibuki candidate. Teach stopped his monologuing when he realized that Luffy was nowhere in sight, only Smoker and the garbage piles around them both. Shiroi Furudobiu, White View Field. Smoker slammed his open palm onto a piece of rubble and out of his arm came a heavy mass of smoke. A classic smokescreen that only someone like Smoker can do. Like that is going to help you too? I sailed under Shirahige for 20 years. You can't escape me. Teach shouted out and was about to focus on finding Luffy who apparently disappeared in the smokescreen. But then Smoker appeared and swung his large weapon, the Nanashiku Jeet, at Teach. The seasoned trader of a pirate was able to catch the weapon despite the damage on his body. If you were going to charge then what was the point? Teach was about to try and taunt Smoker, to get under his skin like always. Then he started to wonder two things. One, that he couldn't absorb the weapon and two, he was feeling rather weakened from the point he caught the Jeet. Do you know what sea stone, sea prism stone, is? Smoker asked with a sadistic smile to see that Teach learned the hard way on what he can't absorb just yet. And Smoker loved the look on the fat ass's face when Teach realized that he was duped. Sideobasurashu, sideburn slash. Luffy appeared from out of the smoke with his katana out and both hands on the handle. And Teach couldn't even scream in pain when his bare other side had been sliced clean through. Meanwhile, you were right, these scumbags just don't fall and stay down. Momonga had rounded up Toshigi and, reluctantly, the Straw Hats to try and combine their efforts on the Blackbeard pirates as a whole. A change of tactics he called it. But still, the results weren't any different, only the appearance of the enemy pirates. Each one was covered with open wounds, ugly bruises and even their clothes were worse for wear. Yes, sir. Toshigi spoke up. Despite their low numbers, they were still responsible for the destruction on Drum Island and defeating the former king, Wapol, who is now missing. Neither of the Marines noticed that each of the Straw Hats growled or else gritted their teeth. It was infuriating that they couldn't break it to the Marines that Wapol had fled like a coward, not even bothering to fight the Blackbeard pirates. When I want a report or a comment, I will let you know. Momonga sneered at Tashigi, who realized that she spoke out of line for a moment. But that can wait because, what the hell? That was when the Blackbeard pirates were engulfed in a smokescreen that even blocked out any awareness to where the scumbags were. Because both the Straw Hats and the Marines were in the winning tide, the captain of the Blackbeard pirates himself had issued a silent order to retreat. XXXXX earlier, both Luffy and Smoker were the ones standing high and above a fallen fatso that is Teach. It was clear that the pirate who calls himself Blackbeard was about to lose conscience if he tries to keep the battle train running. "Give up, Blackbeard," Smoker shouted. "You can absorb all the pain you want, but you have to feel Mugiwara's poison sooner or later. As we speak, more and more Marines will be arriving and you will not be able to fight your way out." Smoker hoped nobody heard that part about Luffy still. "We are putting you under arrest for the destruction that you caused on Drum Island, still registered to belong to the world government. You should listen to him." Luffy wanted his own 2 cents while the fatso was still on the ground, losing feeling in his legs. "But in the case that we meet again as hated enemies, I want to thank you. It was you and your little band's actions on Drum Island that was the best thing to happen since Wapol took over. You can give yourself a pat on the shoulder, good bad boy." Teach gritted his teeth. He never was so humiliated in all his life. He thought that he could fix this setback by defeating the newest Shichibuki only a week the most after being granted the status by the world government. But Luffy was far stronger than he left on, which could explain how he easily defeated Crocodile, and the Marines came to actually back him up, which doomed the plan from the moment they arrived. Liberation. Teach used not one but both of his hands clad in darkness to release the smoke he absorbed from Smoker to create his own smokescreen. "Retreat, you bastards. We're not ready to face Straw Hats, not with the Marines too." Teach was able to tell that his crew had heard the call and made their way past him, but not before. "Remember this, Mugiwara? I spent 20 years to enact my plan and I will not be denied of what I deserve. I will become the king of pirates." Then Teach turned tailed like before and didn't get far before he was answered. "If you want to be the next pirate king, then I am more than glad to fight you for it. But I will never accept someone who harms my friends, my family and smears on the name of a rival for my dream." Luffy shouted back at Blackbeard. "I am warning you, Teach. Once I learn that you harmed a hair on my brother, I will go to war with you if I have to." Then the world froze, everything suddenly moving as if time had slowed to the speed of a snail. Only Luffy and Teach seemed to be affected as their heart rates are still pumping hard from all the excitement. "I will get what I want, whether you are my ally or enemy. I promise that." With that, the world started to move like normal and the Blackbeard pirates somehow evaded the Marines while Luffy didn't budge an inch to stop them. "Yes, sir." Tashigi spoke up. Despite their low numbers, they were still responsible for the destruction on Drum Island and defeating the former king, Wapol, who is now missing. Neither of the Marines noticed that each of the Straw Hats growled or else gritted their teeth. It was infuriating that they couldn't break it to the Marines that Wapol had fled like a coward, not even bothering to fight the Blackbeard pirates. That was when the Blackbeard pirates were engulfed in a smokescreen that even blocked out any awareness to where the scumbags were. Because both the Straw Hats and the Marines were in the winning tide, the captain of the Blackbeard pirates himself had issued a silent order to retreat. XXXXX earlier, both Luffy and Smoker were the ones standing high and above a fallen fatso that is Teach. It was clear that the pirate who calls himself Blackbeard was about to lose conscience if he tries to keep the battle train running. "Give up, Blackbeard," Smoker shouted. "You can absorb all the pain you want, but you have to feel Mugiwara's poison sooner or later. As we speak, more and more Marines will be arriving and you will not be able to fight your way out." Smoker hoped nobody heard that part about Luffy still. "We are putting you under arrest for the destruction that you caused on Drum Island, still registered to belong to the world government." Liberation. Teach used not one but both of his hands clad in darkness to release the smoke he absorbed from Smoker to create his own smokescreen. "Retreat, you bastards. We're not ready to face Straw Hats, not with the Marines too." Teach was able to tell that his crew had heard the call and made their way past him, but not before. "Remember this, Mugiwara? I spent 20 years to enact my plan and I will not be denied of what I deserve. I will become the king of pirates." Then Teach turned tailed like before and didn't get far before he was answered. "If you want to be the next pirate king, then I am more than glad to fight you for it. But I will never accept someone who harms my friends, my family and smears on the name of a rival for my dream." Luffy shouted back at Blackbeard, who still kept running. "I am warning you, Teach. Once I learn that you harmed a hair on my brother, I will go to war with you if I have to." Then the world froze, everything suddenly moving as if time had slowed to the speed of a snail. Only Luffy and Teach seemed to be affected as their heart rates are still pumping hard from all the excitement. "I will get what I want, whether you are my ally or enemy. I promise that." With that, The world started to move like normal and the Blackbeard pirates somehow evaded the Marines while Luffy didn't budge an inch to stop them. Mugiwara, Straw Hat, Smoker growled, but he didn't need to speak another word to show how disappointed he was in Luffy and himself, for allowing not just Teach but also his crew to escape. I know Smokey, but you won't want it to go the other way. You're the one that doesn't trust us Shichibuki, 7 royal warlords. Luffy responded by cooling himself down and putting away his blades into their scabbards. And you were right once before. I say that you still have your mind in the right place. Flattery will get you nowhere, Mugiwara, Smoker retorted, and before he could get on a rant, he felt the eyes of the devil staring down his shoulder. Turning around, he saw Momonga in all his glory. Vice Admiral, sir, Smoker quickly got into a stiff salute. For a marine that doesn't trust the Shichibuki, you fought just fine with Mugiwara. I saw it all. Smoker didn't say a word, waiting for his superior to give the word that he may speak. And I understand that you feel ashamed, but I have it worse. I was sent when headquarters recognized that Blackbeard used to sail the Grand Line under Whitebeard. I was supposed to be the one to append him, but I choose to fight his dirtbag foot soldiers. I didn't want your protege to be killed off or seen among pirates. Smoker took it in and nodded. So, you just return to your assigned ship with your attendant and take some rest. As a vice admiral, everything falls on me when we failed to capture non-Shichibuki pirates. Dismissed. Yes sir. Come on to Shigi and don't get lost. Smoker finally spoke and the swordswoman hurried over to him. In Mugiwara, Luffy gave his attention to Smoker. It was fun. Thanks. Smoker mumbled, hoping that only Luffy heard it. Thankfully, he did, and Luffy even hid his smile. Now then, Mugiwara, Momonga then spoke to the Shichibuki. I offer my apologies should we have gotten in your way in any form. For each person shocked that a vice admiral will talk to a pirate as if Luffy was a level above him, they hid it. We were moving everyone out and labeled at least one of the inhabitants as Bellamy the hyena, worth 55 million berries. And I am confident that the state in he was found, beaten to a pulp, was of your doing. Luffy nodded his head. If I may speak my mind, Momonga gave off the face that said, it better be good and quick. I have been rough with that rookie when he barged into a tavern where I was enjoying a meal. He thought me replacing Crocodile was a farce, a lie, a scam made by the world government. I didn't care for what he thought, but he got under my skin when he had to address my crew as prey. Even as pirates have some honor in our veins. Duly noted. Momonga responded. As for me bringing this up, you were the one who not only defeated the hyena but also noted as to where his crew was. Shall we discuss a share of his bounty? Once again, the atmosphere was frozen with disbelief, and it will finally explain how the Marines knew where to find the Straw Hats in the middle of their fight with the Blackbeard pirates. To be fair, I ask only 25 million while you keep the remaining 30 million berries. Sounds fair? Momonga nodded as his answer, and with the twitch of his finger a Marine soldier appeared with a pair of suitcases. Momonga took the one from the Marine's left hand that somehow appeared lighter than the other, and the Vice Admiral promptly gave it to Luffy to hold. Opening it, Luffy saw the share of Bellamy's bounty inside in the form of 1,000 berry bills. Luffy then closed the suitcase and gave Momonga the bow of a businessman concluding his affairs, and the Vice Admiral gave a smaller bow out of respect for his rank. Momonga then walked off with that same Marine, still holding the other suitcase while Luffy walked towards his crew. You can bash my face in later, Nami. Luffy spoke to his girlfriend, handling the suitcase over to her. Now let's get back to the King's Gourd and plan where to go next. I have had it with this dump. XXXXX later, Nami did have the urge to lock Luffy out of the cabin for the night, giving more than half the bounty to the Marines, but she wasn't the type to try her bargaining skill and luck with a Vice Admiral. Especially the one that Momonga portrayed him as. Still, there was some good news to be shared. A hermit, living on this island talking about a sky island, and even discovered gold at the bottom of the ocean. Luffy reviewed the notes while Chopper still worked on any wounds. We still have a lot of time to kill before the log pose eventually settles on another island. It will worth something, so let's did. Luffy made the call and his crew hurried to move the King's Gourd to the side of the island that is a dense forest on the other side of Mocktown. Still, they had a surprise to see something like that of a fairy tale castle. Yet a few of the guys were not convinced and remarked that it was an illusion. True to their word, Luffy discovered that it was fake. The reality was that it was a plywood cut out of a castle that was covering what seems to be a small house cut clean in half. And the only thing nearly was a stump that had a kid's picture book. Nami checked it out and read the title to read, Noland the Liar. Apparently, it was published in the North Blue Sea. And Sanji remarked that he read that book a lot when that he was born in the North. This baffled most of the crew. The remaining few had a feeling that Sanji was more than born in the North but wasn't talking. They had no idea on how right they were. Luffy emerged out of the house saying that it was unoccupied, so they decided to stick around and wait for the hermit to return, albeit with a rude welcome. All the while, Nami read the child's book. It went like this. Long time ago, there was an adventurer named Noland. He often told high tales, stories from the sea that sounded so far-fetched that not even the children believed him. They simply wanted to hear what he will come up next. One day, after yet another voyage to the sea, Noland visited the country king. He said that he discovered a city of gold on an island. This was the greatest of his stories, yet he sounded so sure about it. The king had agreed to check out the story of the city of gold and assembled a crew of over 1,000 sailors and soldiers on a single ship. The sea was rough with storms and monsters, yet the king was able to protect valiantly. But by the time they got to the island, they were left with only 200 left and the island was covered in nothing but a forest. Noland was sent back to the kingdom and sentenced to death for lying, and, on the death stand, Noland shouted out that the city of gold could have sunk into the ocean. This baffled everyone, that the foolish liar still believed in the city of gold right to his very death. The end. Nami closed the book and even teased Usopp about how both him and Noland were considered to be liars. Meanwhile, Luffy noticed bubbles nearly the edge of the island. It was like something was breathing down there. And Luffy was able to back away from a human hand shooting out to grab him. Look sharp, guys. What the hell are you scumbags doing on my property? This alerted everyone while their captain moved back for some looking space. This wasn't what they had in mind for a hermit talking about a sky island. He was a muscular, middle-aged man with blonde hair. He has a large chestnut on his head. He wears dark purple tracksuit pants with a white stripe running along each leg, and a rope around his waist. He was wearing simply a pair of trousers. He is usually seen smoking with a cigarette in his mouth. On his left arm, the man had a tattoo of a chestnut with the word, maroon, written across it. You are after my gold, aren't you? Then, drop dead. Sanji had to dodge quickly when the chestnut man delivered a mean kick to the face, which was followed by an equally swift side sweep kick. But while Sanji was able to dodge that too, the man moved in with grace to go for a left stab. The blonde-haired cook was barely able to use one of his legs to parry, just barely. Then the man started to play dirty, pulling a gun from who knows where and almost shot Sanji for real. Too bad that was only a close shot that Sanji was able to dodge right before the man started to shot off randomly and recklessly. Alright, if he fights with guns, Frank spoke up from all the noise and inaction, pulling out his trusty revolver and aimed it at the old man until the latter suddenly fell to the ground in pain. What? Chopper noticed something about how the old man was twitching worse than a fish on dry land. Everyone, help me get him inside. I think that he is sick. In no time at all, the old man was relocated into the strange house with the sun shining through the windows while hot wet towels were placed in certain spots on him. Chopper explained that it was an illness that was common with deep-sea divers, who constantly expose their bodies to water pressure for days without end, and without giving their bodies the time to adjust to the change in pressure. This was a decompression sickness that involves water bubbles forming around the muscles, causing great pain which can lead to death. The old man was definitely diving, and the little scuffle he had with Sanji had accelerated the sickness until he was in too much pain to even stand up. Still, there were more surprises to be made while the pirates were still taking care of the hermit. Old guy, are you okay? We heard gunshots and Mocktown was destroyed. It appeared to be two large apes in human clothing trying to wedge their way into the doorway. And they almost thought that the Straw Hats were harming the hermit, which seems to be their friend, or rather their boss. Oh, you're here to talk about finding an island and you were helping our old man. Sorry about that. One of them, which apparently was the older brother, had laughed it off along with his younger brother. And in order, their names were Shoju and Masira. Shoju is a large man who looks like an orangutan with long green hair. He wears a black button-up shirt that is too small for his body, showing off his hairy torso, a green captain's coat with his arms in the sleeves, and a green captain's hat with his personal Jolly Roger on the front. He also wears a belt that has the kanji for forest engraved upon it. His hair is so long that its entire length is almost as long as Shoju's entire body height. And Masira was also a human with ape-like features. He wears an orange-yellow jumpsuit, and also has headphones and goggles. What makes him interesting is he apparently has a tail, although sometimes it cannot be seen. Masira also has huge arms and some kind of piercing around his wrists. Of course, like most brothers, they gotten in a disagreement that has gotten physical, but Luffy didn't care. He heard from Chopper and Kaya that the hermit had awoken. Luffy re-entered the house to see the old man sitting on the bed and taking a smoke. Apparently, he was the hermit who dives every day to look for gold, and that his name was Blanc Cricket. Sorry about the hostility, guys. I seriously thought you were yet more thieves hearing about my gold from Mocktown, the old man said, and Luffy just waved it off. And I understand that while I was hundreds of feet down below like usual, you and your little gang fought with another pirate crew that got Mocktown into the garbage dump it always was. Let's drop it, okay? We are here because you also believe in Sky Island. Our log pose is pointing towards the clouds, and we even have a map that speaks of Skypia. Luffy responded and even took out the map to show to Cricket. Yet the old man only took a look for a split second before laughing manically. You seriously believe this crap? Nobody was amused and just waited for Cricket to be finished. This map is over 200 years old. Who knows if it's real and not something made up and then tossed into the sea to be found by fools like you? What makes you think there is a Sky Island at all? Before Luffy could speak up, the old man spoke up again. Because there was one man that said it was real and went down as a liar forever. My ancestor, Mont Noland. This was a surprise, and the chestnut on the head should have been a clue. They thought Noland's chestnut was just another plot device to make him look more foolish. Cricket went on that his family also believed in the city of gold and the island in the sky, so they all sailed the Grand Line to look for it, but with no luck. And Cricket said that he was the black sheep of the family, as he was the only one that didn't care for any of this and tried to rid himself of the ridicule he knew from the day he was born, simply for having the blood of Noland. And, in an act of irony, he assembled a pirate crew and found the island of Jaya. The one that Noland claimed to have seen the city of gold. He figured that since he was the only one of the Blanc family to ever find the island, then it was his destiny to find out once for and all that Noland's stories were true or false. His crew never agreed to it and left him to live on Jaya, where he found the house cut clean in half and made it his home. I am just an old man trying to get free from what my ancestor had done to our family. Don't let you kids get in the middle of my battle. Cricket finished with the sigh of his cigarette. After all that, why do you finding this island in the sky? Because Roger arrived at a sky island along with a cabin boy who will grow up to be a great pirate and one of my teachers. Luffy spoke with utter surety and everyone in the room. You were taught by someone who sailed under the Pirate King. That was the collected response by most of the crew. Even the stoic Robin was shocked to hear that Luffy had such a connection to Roger. That will be for later, but I know that there is a Skypia and you are the only one who knows how to get there. Luffy responded and stared hard Cricket, settling a thick atmosphere in the room. We will talk over a drink or two. XXXXX. When Cricket said to talk over drinks, he really meant having a drink out. A party at his place. When Shoju and Masira finally stopped their childish brawl, they joined in and brought in the booze and refreshments. And that got the party into full swing, with everyone eating themselves full and drinking themselves drunk. There was the little thing of Cricket trying to direct Nami to sit beside him, but Luffy keep a good distance since the old man was clearly having too much to drink. Yet, all the while everyone was eating or drinking, Robin preferred tea and a good book to read. And the book she was reading happened to be an ancient one, easily 400 years old, that she found on the bookshelf near the bed. It was a journal, and when she came across a page with minimal writing and some tear spots, Cricket appeared in her face. I saw the gold in the skull's right eye. That got everyone's attention and they stopped to hear what it supposedly meant. That was the last my ancestor ever wrote until his planned execution. As for the meaning, not I was able to figure it out. Does it mean the eye of a human skull? Or does it mean there is an island shaped like a skull and the gold is there? We may never know, as Noland took the answer to his grave. Cricket finished his drink and let out a satisfied sigh. Now that we have been rested over, I would like to share some things with you, as your captain agreed. Cricket turned to the two ape-looking men and they hurried over to fetch something. And when they returned, the Straw Hats were amazed to see a bell made of gold that was the size to fit in the palm of a human hand. But while that was impressive, the real star of the show was the large, gold model of what seems to be some kind of a toucan. As for what this statue, made of real gold, is supposed to be of, a south bird. Silence filled the air, like a foreign word was shot out. But Luffy looked the wiser like before. I have heard of those somewhere while training. South birds are tropical birds that are called so because they have the best sense of direction for any living creature, better than any compass made. Sailors who acquire a south bird have a good way of navigating because those birds face south no matter what, even during storms or the Grand Line. ARRGH. The whole house suddenly shook and nearly knocked everything over. That reminds me, if you are going to get to the Sky Island, then you will have to take a very dangerous current that shots upward to the clouds, and the only way to make it is with a south bird. WHAAT. I saw the gold in the skull's right eye. That got everyone's attention and they stopped to hear what it supposedly meant. That was the last my ancestor ever wrote until his planned execution. As for the meaning, not even I was able to figure it out. Does it mean the eye of a human skull? Or does it mean there is an island shaped like a skull and the gold is there? We may never know, as Noland took the answer to his grave. Cricket finished his drink and let out a satisfied sigh. Now that we have been rested over, I would like to share some things with you, as your captain agreed. Cricket turned to the two ape-looking men and they hurried over to fetch something. And when they returned, the Straw Hats were amazed to see a bell made of gold that was the size to fit in the palm of a human hand. But while that was impressive, the real star of the show was the large, gold model of what seems to be some kind of a toucan. As for what this statue, made of real gold, is supposed to be of, a south bird. Silence filled the air, like a foreign word was shot out. But Luffy looked the wiser like before. I have heard of those somewhere while training. South birds are tropical birds that are called so because they have the best sense of direction for any living creature, better than any compass. Sailors who acquire a south bird have a good way of navigating because those birds face south no matter what, even during storms. ARRGH. The whole house suddenly shook and nearly knocked everything over. That reminds me, if you are going to get to the Sky Island, then you will have to take a very dangerous current that shots upward to the clouds, and the only way to make it is with a south bird. WHAAT. What do you mean that you aren't coming? Usopp shouted off his disbelief and annoyance. Despite being equipped with hunting and catching gear from the king's gourd, you will be able to find the South Bird easily. Exactly. That's why I am not coming and neither is Robin. Luffy responded firmly. Then he turned to Nami, his girlfriend. Don't worry honey. I will be a good boy and I trust you to keep Sanji's hands off, right? Nami tried to get jealous or at least suspicious but her heart swooned by Luffy's devilish grin. And somehow, everyone missed that Robin had a very small blush that she was hiding with one of her hands. I get it. With Robin's ability, it will be too easy. Zoro then spoke up. All she will have to do is see the stupid bird and toss it down from whatever it is roosting down to the damn ground. That was gruff, expected of Luffy's male first mate, but still made sense. And personally, taking it easy will hurt worse than a salted fresh wound. Come on. Soon enough, there was just Luffy and Robin out in the open. Aren't you a bad boy? Inviting me out here alone with you? The mysterious woman tried to tease Luffy but he won't have it. Hands off, I just want to give my crew a handicap for them to overcome on their own. Luffy grumbled. Besides, you seem to be the type to love to learn. So, is there anything you would like to know? I'm willing to share. Robin giggled. Are you sure that you want to open to a stranger such as myself? Luffy didn't even face her. Her only response was the air getting thick, to the point of being hard to breathe for Robin. Is that a no? Luffy spoke of thin patience for those who give complicated answers to simple questions, or else don't answer at all. Robin felt a shiver down her spine, somehow scaring and amusing her. Pardon me, I didn't mean to offend. Luffy at least had half a smile in his frown. I do want to ask about you. Me too. Both pirates looked up to see the old man himself from the half house. I would like to know just what the hell happened in that crap town before you and your gang blew it up. Cricket continued and got comfy on the grass. I want to know too. You did send a messenger telling people like me to not get involved. Robin added her own 2 cents. Just what is this, Blackbeard, that fells your every fiber with hate? He committed a true sin. Luffy actually answered, baffling his audience. When you are a pirate, you sail free of the rules set forth by the government and are hunted by the Marines. When you are all alone on the vast ocean, you can only turn to your comrades and your fellow pirates. One, Cricket rubbed his goatee while Robin looked indifferent. And Blackbeard used to sail under another captain, my superior, Edward Newgate. Both of them lost color on their faces. Blackbeard sailed under the Yonko, 4 emperors. Shira Higate, Whitebeard, Luffy nodded, inwardly amused by their expressions. You have connections with the strongest man in the world. Robin somehow looked like a ghoul and Luffy continued to smirk at it. You missed a few epic phone calls I made before leaving Alabastra. I even talked with my childhood idol, Shanks. Luffy added and held in the urge to laughter when a couple of faces got in his own. Even Akagami, red-haired, Shanks. Luffy nodded and then got grimly serious. The point I am making is that Blackbeard sailed under the flag for 20 years and showed his true colors when he stole the Yami Yami no Mi, dark fruit, from one of his fellow sailors. Right before stabbing him in the back, Cricket and Robin had settled down since Luffy looked like he needed someone's head to pop off given how his hands itched. I can't stand such bastards who breach the trust pirates have for each other, and just jump ship afterwards. And how do you know all about this? Cricket finally spoke calmly. I mean you talk like you were there when it all happened. All living beings are the same, old man. Luffy cut him off. We don't speak, eat, drink or even move to scratch an itch on your nose, unless we tell ourselves do so. Those thoughts usually go unheard but I have cracked the code years ago. It is not a complete process just yet. Cricket suddenly felt like he was sitting on a stool with a soft top, with his arms on a counter and facing a bartender with Luffy's face. But I have gone a long way in perfecting it. The bartender even had Luffy's voice and offered a glass with a large ice cube and fresh beer sizzling inside. Cricket then took it without even thinking and drank the beer, much to the delight of his taste buds. Here, in my bar, all you have to do is to enjoy a drink and share your troubles. Everyone has come here for the pleasure of it. Luffy, as the bartender, then directed Cricket's attention to how the counter stretches both to the left and right, endlessly. And the old man saw not only Robin but other people and even animals sitting on their own stools talking to identical bartenders. You are one hell of a pirate, kid, Cricket could only say before asking for another whiskey and told Luffy about his story. After he was done, all 3 of them were suddenly back in the clearing. Thanks kid, I feel much better now. Not a problem, old man. Luffy answered. I promise you, we will help you settle things with Noland. No one deserves to live out here, all alone. Cricket looked away, mumbling about something in his eye, instead to hide the tears going down his cheeks. We're back. The ice was broken by an amusing sight. A gang of pirates running out of the woods, covered in dirt and bruises, carrying a restless bird along. And he finally caught the South Bird. Luffy smiled and walked up to the bizarre-looking bird, grabbing it by the legs. Hello you. You're grouchy and I can understand that. But we need someone like you for a very important matter. Luffy talked to the South Bird with a tone that was both creepy and friendly, scaring even the bird itself. Once you help us, you can fly back to the jungle and feast any more fools that trespass in your home. Until then, you are stuck with us. Better get used to it or else we will feed a cracker." The south bird completely quieted down and was too scared to protest anymore. XXXXX. The following morning finally came. "Everything ready?" Luffy asked Nami and Alvida. Both are going over the fastened down. Supplies secure. Luffy checked things off with his own fingers. "And the going merry," Luffy said, making the atmosphere tense slightly. "It is secure for the hell we are sailing towards?" "It better be." All three turned to their resident sniper with a fierce look on his face. "Because I am not emphasizing this just for me." Usopp then took off, and Luffy turned to Kaya. She had a distant look on her face. It was like she couldn't decide to be flattered, relieved or worried for her boyfriend. Meanwhile, "Captain, the clouds are starting to form and a little ahead of schedule," Masira's crew informed the monkey-looking man. They offered to aid the Straw Hats to get to Sky Island after helping their boss, the objective to help the King's Gourd hitch a ride on the Naku-Apu Sutorimu, knock upstream. It was a grand line phenomenon that occurs at least 5 times a month and at different locations. It was also the only way for the Straw Hats to ever reach Sky Island. The power behind the stream was enough to send a water high into the air, almost the heights of skyscrapers. If this couldn't reach the Sky Island, nothing will. Right now, the plan has been going smoothly until the calculations turned to be a little off. "Guys, we need to move now. Your ride is about here." Masira called over to the Straw Hats. "Brother, let's go." The other Monkey Man's crew was on the other side of the King's Gourd, to help it move to where the skyward current was to occur. Soon, the sky turned dark in the middle of the day. The clouds were black and thick, as if a hurricane was coming through. And the ocean started to stir and pull in the large vessels. "Okay Mugiwara, Straw Hat. This is as far as we can take you and your crew. Good luck." Masira shouted out as both his and his brother's ships managed to back out of the currents. "Thank you, for everything," Luffy called out, as good as he could since his girlfriend was clinging to him like a lifeline. Not to mention his reindeer. Little brother was doing the same with one of his legs. Meanwhile Usopp looked like a shoulder to attention, trying to hide his own fear from Kaya. "Hold it Mugiwara." The tense mood suddenly gained a sour taste. Turning towards the voice in the wind, they saw what could only be a wooden raft trying to be a pirate ship. The large black sail had the Jolly Roger as 3 skulls together, similar to that of the Cerberus. But Luffy knew who was sailing this contraption. Blackbeard. That was deep and ominous, that of a man out for blood. "I thought that a piece of shit like you won't be so stupid to try and attack us out here. You will just get the Marines back on your puny tail. Those pathetic Marines have their hands full with that arrogant brat, Bellamy." That was almost ironic if you consider overconfidence to be the same as arrogance. "So, if you have the guts to take me on like a man then you won't run away from your destined defeat, z ha ha ha." Everyone still had their looks on Luffy, wondering what he wants to do. Instead, Luffy doesn't say a word and continues to stare down the large raft with a pirate flag. "Don't bother with them. Are we in the center of the whirlpool?" They all nodded. While Luffy was focusing on the raft with Blackbeard on, he didn't notice that the spiraling whirlpool had suddenly stopped and the water turned calm and motionless. While everyone was silent and confused, Luffy smirked. "Good. Then they are the ones about to lose." Then it happened. In the blink of an eye, in a split second, the water underneath the King's Gourd erupted worse than a centuries-dormant volcano. All that water shot up and formed truly a marvel of a geyser. At the base, the raft carrying the Blackbeard pirates had collapsed under the impact and pressure. Meanwhile, the King's Gourd was riding along. "Open the sails. Make sure everything is secure," Luffy shouted out, rushing to the sails along with the others. "And get ready for the adventure of a lifetime." "Yeah." The crew cheered with all their strength and finally, they all vanished above the clouds. From there, no one on the sea surface can help them now. They truly are on their own, with hopes they made it to Sky Island. As all this was happening, Cricket had already gone through 10 boxes of his cancer sticks, still watching the Straw Hats ride the current far above the clouds to reach the sky. He didn't even see the Blackbeard pirates try in vain to interfere with them. "Go for it, kid. For the both of us." He knew that he may never see Luffy again but Cricket still put all his hopes on that young pirate. Then it happened. In the blink of an eye, in a split second, the water underneath the King's Gourd erupted worse than a centuries-dormant volcano. All that water shot up and formed truly a marvel of a geyser. At the base, the raft carrying the Blackbeard pirates had collapsed under the impact and pressure. Meanwhile, the King's Gourd was riding along. "Open the sails. Make sure everything is secure," Luffy shouted out, rushing to the sails along with the others. "And get ready for the adventure of a lifetime." "Yeah." The crew cheered with all their strength and finally, they all vanished above the clouds. From there, no one on the sea surface can help them now. They truly are on their own, with hopes they made it to Sky Island. As all this was happening, Cricket had already gone through 10 boxes of his cancer sticks, still watching the Straw Hats ride the current far above the clouds to reach the sky. He didn't even see the Blackbeard pirates try in vain to interfere with them. Go for it, kid. For the both of us. He knew that he may never see Luffy again, but Cricket still put all his hopes on that young pirate. The sudden increase in attitude is actually more dangerous than one can assume. It can cause more than dizziness. It can lead to bloody noses, headaches and fevers. So, when the Straw Hats had finally escaped the clouds, they were hit with the light atmosphere pretty hard. They were either on the deck panting or struggling to get on their other leg. Luffy, as always, was the first one to get his bearing and even hopped on the railings to his ship. We're here. The White Sea. Luffy sounded like he had lost his voice and had to whisper. But everyone heard him perfectly, and they had to see for themselves. The girls had stars in their eyes. Usopp and Chopper were just as bad. Even the stoic members such as Zoro, Kuro and Jin couldn't keep their jaws from opening in awe. Frank found himself holding the former unlucky in his arms so they both could see. Not even their sunglasses could keep their excitement from leaking out. Of course, they knew it was a sea of clouds when a certain someone emerged from it. Umi, I knew you will make it. Luffy was excited to see the giant sea serpent from his home waters. Right now, Umi was trying to catch his breath after that nautical nightmare back there. Then he let out a growl with a certain pattern. He says, I am clinging to your raft next time. Chopper translated for the crew and they tried to picture it, with varying results. Some were silly while the others were downright nasty. Nevertheless, Umi was able to swim in the clouds just fine. But the log pose, Nami took a good look if the instrument was damaged in the flight. Yet it was still pointing upward. We still haven't reached our destination? Probably. Luffy answered. As we are surrounded by clouds, it means that we are still at bottom level of the White Sea. The Naku-Apu Sutorimu, knock upstream, wasn't strong enough to land us in front of Skypia, only to where we are in no danger of falling back to the Blue Sea. So how do we find our way to Skypia? I seriously doubt that we can learn how to sail clouds even on the Grand Line. Robin brought up and Luffy just let out a hum. I am already picking up on living signatures in a good distance. We are bound to run into someone who does know. Then Luffy turned his neck loudly towards the front side of the ship. Get on your guard, everyone. I am now sensing hostility coming at us fast. Luffy's seriousness was enough to convince his crew. Chopper was already there and with binoculars to get some distance on the sea of clouds. He just spotted another vessel, right before it blew up. Ah, someone attacked that ship. He panicked for a little bit to inform the crew and looked again. Oh, someone is coming straight at us. Chopper, brace. Luffy suddenly shouted and his little brother saw, with little time to spare, that this figure wasn't friendly. Gado pointo, guard point. The little reindeer bit down on his little yellow ball, turning him into a ball of fur to soften the blow. However, the figure still sent Chopper bouncing on the ship. What are you doing on my ship? Luffy demanded of the stranger, who dressed similar to Indians but with a strange mask on his face, wore strange skates and even had a shiny bazooka in right hand with some kind of shield in the other hand. I am going to reject you. That was all the stranger spoke before landing a kick into Sanji's stomach, sending the cook into Jin and Usopp. Zoro tried to get a hit in but the stranger parried with another kick that left him staggering. Kuro moved in but also was lifted like a leaf and blown away. But the stranger can go after anyone else. He was finally stopped in his tracks by a hand on his shoulder. Get the hell. Luffy spoke with calm anger. Off my ship. The captain tossed away the stranger with a mean shoulder throw, and stay off. Before Luffy could even think, his girlfriend latched on his neck. That's my Luffy, undefeatable, Nami purred in Luffy's neck before looking scandalized, facing the other men. Which is more than what I can say about you boys, getting your ass kicked so easily. Don't be too hard on them, Nami. They're still adjusting to the thin air up here, and I am too. Luffy responded gently and rubbed Nami's hair as if the fur of a house cat, which calmed down his girl a bit. You are not hurt too bad, right Usopp? Kaya asked her own boyfriend who just rubbed his face where it landed on the deck. Just my pride for not seeing something up close from coming. Usopp mumbled before Kaya played with his cheek, wearing a playful smile. But then came a most interesting man to greet them. It seems that you are in no need of my assistance. It was soft and aged, like that of a grandfather. But the Straw Hats never counted on seeing an old man dressed up armor and holding a lance. Did I feel like you need some help finding your way? I am. Gonfall or the Sky Knight if you prefer. Luffy cut him off and while his crew looked indifferent, the old man seemed to be disturbed. And yes, we do. We are from the Blue Sea and our compass started to point up here. The only way we could get to the White Sea was the Naku-Apu Sutorimu, knock upstream. The old man, now known as Gonfall, finally got the color back in his cheeks and stroked his beard. I see, then you folk are most lucky to survive such a dangerous current. And if your compass is still pointing up then you are still fortunate, there is an island nearby. Thank you, old man, and before you leave, Luffy said and got the Gonfall's attention. My idol and mentor, Shanks, wishes to send his regards. Now the old man was really shocked. His eyes almost left their sockets. Not to mention that this was news to the Straw Hats too. Shanks got up here too. That was the collected response, and Luffy nodded, not even flinching. He did. It was when he was a simple cabin boy, sailing with his old captain, Gold D. Roger. Luffy dropped the anvil before and now let loose a bomb on his ship's deck. Gonfall then let out a chuckle. Ah yes, Roger. I hadn't seen him in 20 years. The old man had the look of reminiscence, thinking back on his youth. How is he doing? Then Luffy lost his smirk and looked like someone had kicked his puppy to death right in front of him. Not good. He became infected with an incurable illness, so he conquered the Grand Line and became the king of pirates. Then he turned himself in to be executed in his hometown of Logatown. Luffy answered, and soon, the atmosphere was one of shock and confusion. But Luffy, didn't the Marines capture the Pirate King? Kuro spoke up this time, and Luffy's expression didn't improve. This somehow made Kuro feel like a student answering a question wrong during class time. No, like I said, Roger wanted to avoid dying of his illness, so he settled for a painless death by execution. He practically took a dingy and walked up to the Marine's front door with his hands behind his head. Luffy responded. T. Roger in front of the whole world and send a message to all sailors of what will happen if they turn to piracy. Too bad it had the opposite effect and instead caused the Great Pirate Era. Gonfall had a sad look about this. It pains me to hear that. Roger and his gang were a lightly bunch. Still, thanks for informing me about what happened to him and his crew. Are most of them still in prison? No, only Roger was taken in. This thickened the plot and the atmosphere. The Marines couldn't care less about the Roger pirates and just wanted the king himself to kill. Shanks left the crew still as an apprentice and even parted ways with another mentor of mine as well as his fellow apprentice, Buggy. And who is this Buggy? Most the crew had no idea about the name, while everyone from the East Blue remembered the literal clown from Logatown. So that nobody with a big red nose sailed under the Pirate King, Zoro truly felt scammed by some divine prank, but Luffy just shrugged. Yeah, but he was the black sheep of the crew, and it is best that you don't worry. He is still an egotistical weakling. I made it clear before, and I will do it again when the two of us meet again. Luffy responded with clear determination in his voice. And for a little while, there was just silence along the White Sea until Chopper walked up to the captain. Big brother. Luffy moved his glance to the little reindeer. Why did the Marines say they caught the Pirate King when you said he turned himself in? Luffy let out a sigh. When you mature and grow up, you will be able to understand why people lie. Luffy responded and went on. The Marines, along with a certain vice admiral I know, had tried and failed to capture Roger for years. Simply for being a pirate. When they learned that Roger had conquered the world's greatest ocean, it was insulting to their skill in catching dirtbags. That is why, when Roger appeared before them and surrendered without a fight, the Marines wanted to save face by stating that they finally captured the king of pirates and killed off his crew. And at least, for them, the lie had saved their reputation. Chopper was silent and everyone just couldn't remove their glances at him, waiting for the little reindeer to respond. Are there people like that other than the Marines, big brother? Plenty. XXXXX later, the Straw Hats found a flowing current of clouds which branch into streams between larger clouds, similar to icebergs. Only when they checked it out, they were nothing that cold or hard. Instead, it was like gigantic marshmallows. Luffy, Chopper and Usopp were excited as 10-year-olds and played on the large clouds, while Nami had her own fun, seeing if the clouds bounced better than her boyfriend, and not in the bedroom sense. That was when Usopp spotted something interesting. A gate? Yeah, a large one that is beyond these big clouds. Usopp responded. The Straw Hats decided that it was a good place to go as any. Soon, they found the gate. It was even bigger than the cloudbergs from before, and it looked like it was made out of stone. Then there was the lettering at the top that spelled, Heaven's Gate. Like the one you should see when you die? Hardly. Luffy responded. After all, we all felt the pain when we arrived here and when we were attacked. Dead men feel no pain. Luffy left it at that and no one asked any more questions, and the King's Gourd sailed through the Heaven's Gate, all the while. Hey look, over there. The silence was broken when Frank pointed something out, to the left side of the gate's interior. There was a small door and it opened to reveal a rather interesting character. It was a woman half the height of the boys, with wrinkles all over, wore a simple blue robe and appeared to have wings on her back. Greetings travelers. I am Amazon, keeper of Heaven's Gate, and I ask that you all pay the toll. She spoke with an old woman's voice too. For each passenger aboard your vessel, you must pay 1 million extols. That's the law. This shocked a few of the Straw Hats while the others were calmer and wondering what if extols were the currency up in the clouds. Sorry madam, but have traveled from the blue sea below and we haven't heard of extols. We do have treasure and funds in berries. Very well. 1 extol amounts to 1,000 berries. Now that almost broke through the atmosphere like a ball hitting a glass plane. Unless you pay the toll, then you will have to answer to the God Almighty. I am sorry madam, but I am afraid that we are not going to pay the toll. Luffy spoke up. Unless you were the one who sent some kind of giant shrimp to our ship. Before anyone could respond, A pair of large lobster claws emerged on each side of the ship. This caused the Straw Hats to tense and ready to fight when the claws gently clutched the sides of the ship, pulling it along the cloud stream. "Try to keep up, Umi," that voice echoed throughout the clouds, followed by screams. All the while, Amazon didn't say a word and instead made a smirk. "Foolish sailors from the blue sea below, you will never survive the hand of God Almighty." But no one paid her any mind. Meanwhile, "Chopper, can you talk to this thing?" Usopp shouted to the little reindeer, hanging on for dear life on Luffy's leg. Everyone was envying that Nami gets to be in the captain's arms, the latter not even budging from his spot. Even while the king's gourd was moving as fast as a race car. I don't think it can hear me. It is right under the king's gourd," Chopper responded. "Big brother." The attention went back to the big man in the coat, standing firmly on the deck. "All I can tell you is that this giant shrimp is taking us beyond the light." Luffy pointed towards the literal light at the end of the tunnel, and once the ship went through Angel Island. The sight to behold was a beautiful one. There was a vast beach before a green forest, and in the distance were some strange buildings stationed on various levels on more clouds. There was also a couple of giant plant stalks to be seen. The one on the right was connected to something higher up. It was even paved with clouds to look like a road slope. Once the ship had drifted to shallow water, Luffy jumped off and landed on the beach. "Alright guys, Captain's orders are to relax and take in this beach before we start exploring Skypia. Get going." It was cute and amusing to see such a powerful character act childlike and fun-loving. "Coming Luffy. I just need a quick change with the other girls," Nami shouted off and practically shoved all the women back into the cabin. This left nothing but boys on the deck until Usopp and Chopper hopped off to get on the beach of clouds. "Let's just get on with it and find a place to relax," Frank said, and was followed along with the more serious Straw Hats. Finally, Umi popped on the beach, growling of the pleasured tone. The clouds were not like marshmallows but pillows as if made in heaven. "Ouch! Cut it out." The girls had gotten a change of clothes for a time on a beach until they received a rather unpleasant surprise. The Straw Hats forgot that they still had the South Bird from Jaya in their cabin, right before they were sent soaring on the super current. And while Luffy scared it into be obedient, the bird still had a grudge for being manhandled in the jungle. Needless to say, the girls had gotten its attention. After giving them a fair share of picking with its large beak, the South Bird started to fly off to who knows where. The Straw Hat girls didn't care for if it will return since they found their way to Skypia and they forgot about it all over again to enjoy the beach. Back on Angel Beach, Chopper was being cute and taking in the softness and squishiness of the clouds before tumbling into Nami's leg. She ignored that and invited Chopper to check out a nearby hut with its own cloud pillows. Chopper said that it was different that on the beach. Usopp was elsewhere, working on something like a sandcastle in the cloud sand. "Ah my maidens," Sanji was back in his love stirred some kind of flower he picked near the forest's boundary. For each lovely woman to behold, the girls didn't care for the flowers and they just dropped them when Sanji wasn't looking. Carol did accept a handmade bouquet of various flowers from Frank, for the times they spent as partners. Georgia simply looked for a good spot for some painting and asked Alvida to help her out with the supplies from out of the ship. Robin wanted to do her own exploring of the beach, taking in the exotic wildlife. Yujiko came along to keep her company. Meanwhile, Zoro and Kuro and Jin were squatting down around something that looked like a fox, but with the mouth of a honeysucker and the fur was as white as the clouds themselves. That was when the sound of harp playing covered the entire beach. This got everyone's attention and they all turned to where the music was originating. It was a harp indeed that was being played live. In Angel, Sanji spoke as if he was in a trance, like he was possessed, but no one responded. They all remembered the gatekeeper Amazon and thought that all inhabitants were similar to her. Not anymore. "Hesso, my name is Konus. She has blonde hair which she wears in 2 braided pigtails and 2 antennae sticking out at the top of her head. She wears a pink dress with black, flower-shaped textures that goes to her thighs. She also wears red and pink striped sandals that are white on the bottom. And this is my pet cloud fox, Sue." Before anyone could respond, "Oh, that's smarts," everyone turned to see an odd sight. Luffy climbed up one of the trees, like the monkey in his name, and apparently broke a tooth or two on a certain melon. Shanks did tell me about a fruit which was tougher than steel but not on what it looked like. I guess that this was him getting even with me when Luffy's grumble soon got soft and none of his crew could make it out. That is because the fruit is indeed impenetrable on the top but it is actually softer on the bottom. Konus explained and Luffy handed over the large melon for the angel host to turn it upside down and cut it open with a knife she had on herself. "Here. The juice inside is delicious." "Thank you." Luffy answered and did a big sip. His tongue wanted to escape his mouth and show how good the juice was. Yum. It should have been since Luffy's tongue suddenly had a mind of its own. "Here, Nami." Luffy turned to his girlfriend but she was not in sight. "Try it." Soon, everyone noticed and looked around for their navigator. They spotted her writing something on the sea of clouds. "Ah, she is truly something special. Writing a waiver on her first try." Konos proclaimed. It is a vehicle that we often use, but it usually takes up to 10 years to master its controls. For it doesn't move on wind, waves or even ocean currents, but a breath dial. That last statement had gotten everyone's attention. A what? XXXXX later, at Konos's house, so, this is a dial. And I thought you guys just collect shells from the beach. Luffy said while holding what looked to be an ordinary large seashell. Konik giggled. Yes, at first glance you might. But that is a dial, a tone dial. This didn't impress anyone just yet, simply speak something loud into the opening of the shell. Sure. Luffy placed the dial near his mouth and took in a deep breath. Nami is the girl for my bed. Somehow, Luffy said that with a stoic look on his face and even ignored Sanji's foot on his cheek. Watch that tongue of yours before I stomp it flat. This only made the guests and their host to be amused. And Luffy looked so shameless and yet so comfortable about that statement regarding Nami. Good, now press the apex of the shell. Konos stated, and Luffy pushed Sanji's foot out of his eye. After finding the centerpiece of the shell, Luffy pressed it good with his index finger, and out of it came. Nami is the girl for my bed, watch that tongue of yours. Wow, that is exactly what we said. Luffy was actually amazed by how the tone dial acted exactly like a recorder. And already, mischievous thoughts seemed into his head. What else can dials do? Konos pointed out various dials used for household purposes. A heat dial used to cook, a milky dial to form clouds, a lamp dial for light during the night, and a thunder dial for electricity. Unfortunately, there are people who develop dials for warfare. Such as, Luffy beckoned Konos to continue. Their host looked haunted by something, but she answered anyways. They created a flame dial, releasing fire instead of heat, an axe dial to inflict harm onto others. Then there is the impact dial. Konos said that last one like a monster from a nightmare she had. It absorbs any impact that hits and releases with just enough to break the bones in a human body. But it's inferior to the reject dial, the one used only for combat. And how is the reject dial superior to the impact dial? Zoro asked. A little interested himself. Konos started to shake and answered with an uneasy voice. The reject dial is 10 times more powerful than an impact dial. It is strong enough to kill the target and the user. A double-edged sword if there ever was an example of the term. Suddenly Luffy froze and hastily made his way to the window, sweat down his neck and his eyes filled with fear. His breathing was swallow and sharp, like he was trying to calm himself down but not making any good progress. Something wrong? It's Nami. I just felt danger and terror appear on my girlfriend's signature. Luffy tried to stabilize himself, but the fear was also present in his voice. Then he pointed into the direction of dark and ominous clouds. What's far over there? That was where I felt Nami to be at. That's where God and his subjects rule and dwell. A forbidden place to those who live in the sky. This was another resident of Konos's house, her father to be exact, Pagaya. Pagaya is a Skypian man of average height. He is almost bald but has the typical Skypian hair antennae sticking out. He has a strange round beard covering his mouth, and he is always shown with closed eyes, however he seems fully able to both see and talk. His hair antennas and beard are dark brown, along with his eyebrows. He wears the typical Skypian robes, in his case a brown-yellow one with a light yellow collar, and light yellow at the end of where the sleeves would be, if it had any. It also has a black leaf-like design. The home of God Almighty that slays trespassers, upper yard. Nami is the girl for my bed, watch that tongue of yours. Wow, that is exactly what we said. Luffy was actually amazed by how the tone dial acted exactly like a recorder. And already, mischievous thoughts seemed into his head. What else can dials do? Konos pointed out various dials used for household purposes. A heat dial used to cook, a milky dial to form clouds, a lamp dial for light during the night, and a thunder dial for electricity. Unfortunately, there are people who develop dials for warfare. Such as, Luffy beckoned Konos to continue. Their host looked haunted by something, but she answered anyways. The reject dial is 10 times more powerful than an impact dial. It is strong enough to kill the target and the user. A double-edged sword if there ever was an example of the term. Then Luffy froze and hastily made his way to the window, sweat down his neck and his eyes filled with fear. His breathing was swallow and sharp, like he was trying to calm himself down but not making any good progress. Something wrong? It's Nami. I just felt danger and terror appear on my girlfriend's signature. Luffy tried to stabilize himself, but the fear was also present in his voice. Then he pointed into the direction of dark and ominous clouds. What's far over there? That was where I felt Nami to be at. That's where God and his subjects rule and dwell. A forbidden place to those who live in the sky. This was another resident of Konos's house, her father to be exact, Pagaya. The home of God Almighty that slays trespassers, upper yard. What's going on, Captain? I can't hone in on Nami Swan, ignoring Sanji's typical foolishness. Luffy took this seriously, and the answer was simple. I trained with my haki along with a lot more for 10 years, Sanji. Your level is nowhere near mine. But Nami-chan is still alive. That much I can tell. Luffy stopped to concentrate, with a frown that showed it. But then his face turned to horror in a blink. The Going Merry, they found it and half of his had been placed on her, drifting towards upper yard. What? Echoing throughout the house, the Straw Hats did a head count and yes, they came out on short. Only Luffy, Sanji, Usopp, Nijiko, Kuro and Frank were present and accounted for. Are you saying that both Kaya and our scout ship, that she gave us, has been stolen? The resident sniper soon found himself in an unimaginable position. He was clutching Luffy by the collar and practically lifting him off the ground. How could you let this happen? How? Luffy was silenced for a moment before releasing the grasp on his collar by a tight grip on both Usopp's wrists. I will admit it, Usopp. You have surprised me today with that reckless outburst. I am sure that Kaya would have wished to see it for herself. And somehow, Luffy was able to keep a straight face from saying this. But I will also admit that this happened because I lowered my guard when we arrived, and that someone has been damping my haki. What kind of excuse is that? Luffy sighed that he was interrupted by both the sniper and the chef at the same time, for their own reasons. Believe me or not, it is possible to block out someone else's haki with your own. My teachers did this much often during my training. Luffy responded. I didn't think much of it until now since I noticed that I couldn't feel anyone outside the house while using my haki causally. The rest is history. So, what should we do about it, Captain? Kuro asked as calm as ever but also hiding his worry since the captain's girl is in unknown dangers. If she is harmed in any way, Luffy could just order the whole land on fire.
What do you think? Luffy turned to the hosts. You are going to tell us everything. And if it helps, you both will get off the hook. Both Kanis and Pagaya saw that Luffy's hand reached for his blade, adding into the tension inside that house. Tell us now.
XXXXX and so, they arrived at Upper Yard. It appeared to be half an island that was resting on the clouds. It was a big shook back at Angel Island, that the large sea creature that pulled their main ship to the beach and stole the Going Merry was summoned by Konis. She said that it was part of their God's rule, to bring in Traveler against his laws on purpose with the sole intention of punishing them for sailing on the White Sea, his domain. Back to stealing the Going Merry, the remaining Straw Hats were horrified and outraged at the sight of the King's Gourd. Their main ship had a giant hole craved out of the hull where they kept the Going Merry. The deck was torn up too and the rooms were all vandalized, any and all valuables were stolen. Luffy practically had a field day with the entire population on Angel Island. They would have been killed if the others hadn't convinced him otherwise. The residents were spared and instead were given an order to repair the King's Gourd. Back to the Upper Yard, the remaining Straw Hats were sailing on a small but sturdy boat that was powered by a pair of enlarged breath dials, the Karasumaru. The name came from how its blow was in the shape of a black bird with its beak open and eyes staring out. Aside for the rather large forest, the trip into Upper Yard was actually eventless until they made a turn to spot a gate up ahead. Between it and them were a bunch of bladed pendulums. Busashoku. Pasutoru, armament. Pistol. Luffy stretched his arm and punched the blades with haki for extra defense and prevent damaging his own arm. Kayaku Boshi, exploding star. Usopp used his rifle to also break the blades with a special explosion round. Bakuden Burshiretto, bomb breath bullets. Frank took out his own special firearm and substituted standard bullets for his own, created from his devil fruit. Rondoabout Otaburabureku, roundabout table break. Sanji made quick footwork of the remaining blades, sending them to be harmless embedded in the large tree trunks. Save some for me next time. Kuro sounded like a kid denied of the fun that the others were enjoying while still as calm as ever. Are you not harmed, Nijiko? Kaya was just one accident. Kuro did have manners when it came to treating women. Especially when Nijiko is the sister to the captain's girlfriend. Not hurt, just annoyed. Nijiko mumbled while the boys just focused on keeping an eye out for danger. Seriously, my little sister defeated a Baroque works agent while I just ran back there. Feel like your sister doesn't need you protecting her anymore? Nijiko turned to Luffy and scuttled to get closer. This was between the two of them. Doesn't matter, Usopp. Go through either one. Luffy sent a comment the other way for a little moment. Now do you wish to help your sister, my girlfriend? You are an interesting man, Captain. Nijiko responded. And I know that you didn't waste time waiting to get closer to my sister. She had to give Luffy credit for having such a neutral face that just had steam emerging out of his ears, with an expression saying, I am not going to ask. Then everyone had lost all thought when they felt something wrong. Like they suddenly were sailing on nothing. Apparently, Usopp had to take the path that led to a sharp slide of clouds, going down, and in that moment, when it hit them, the ship started to fall. Feet up, Luffy shouted and his crew obeyed, seeing the captain somehow stretching himself to cover the deck of the boat. Gum Gum Yasashi Kaba, gentle cover, and gentle it was when the boat actually landed on the path still, while everyone landed on their captain without feeling too much pain. And Kuro even noticed that the bottom of the boat was blacker than before only for when the vessel hit the clouds. Just can't you do with that power, Captain? Nijiko shouted both as an excited kid and a woman witnessing true manliness. Luffy just compressed himself back to his original figure, with his clothes somehow intact and his blade still on his waist. I don't know. I am still learning. Luffy replied and left it at that. Soon, everyone's attention was to the yet another thick, giant forest wit. It was swarming with countless clouds in the shape of perfect spheres. It was a ball pit in a field of no gravity. These remind me of spores, so I suggest you don't touch one of them. Luffy spoke up and turned to see Usopp play with one anyways. Put that away. Before Usopp could respond, a snake emerged from the sphere, scaring everyone. Luffy swiftly kicked it away into the woods but couldn't relax when another floated towards Sanji, who looked ready to kick it away too. Sanji, don't touch that. Luffy shouted off, and like before, he was ignored and the cloud sphere instead exploded. Everyone aboard was covered in soot, including Luffy, who was ready to burst with annoyance. How do like my Bikuratama, surprise balls. You will never know what's inside until it's too late. Ho 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 ho. Everyone heard a voice that can be described as mocking and someone scratching a blackboard. The figure they saw was something hard to make out. It was a round-shaped man with fair skin and long, dark red hair. He is clad in a white, full-body jumpsuit, which has a vertical line of golden rings that run from front to back, an orange hat, orange gloves, shoes, and large, yellow sunglasses that completely obscure his eyes. Finally, he has small white wings on his back. I am Sattorii of the forest, one of God's 4 priests and ruler of the Trial of Sphere. And you are the fools who chose my trial. We are here for our ship and our crewmates that you stole from us. Luffy spoke up, and don't mock us for playing by your rules. Pretty hypocritical for someone who follows your God like a lost lamb. The round man maintained his smile, but Luffy could tell that his words had gotten to the priest. So, let's get this over with. Ho ho ho. Such arrogance will only get you killed her. All these balls are under my control, and even if you can reach me, I am untouchable. Sattorii mocked the pirates and noticed that while most of them are visually annoyed, there was a couple that won't twitch. Now then, a shot straight ahead. Sattorii then demonstrated some impressive balance while moving out of the way of a bullet from a rifle, all the while moving his round body into a dance. Just what is that guy? Usopp, the sniper of course, queried with the mouth of his rifle spewing smoke that tells he just fired it. He tried to aim again but changed angle at the last moment, and yet the round priest dodged it anyways. How is he doing this? Calm down, Usopp. It is clear as the nose on your face. Kuro said with a slight emphasis on the word nose, in reference to Usopp's. And somehow, the sniper took no offense and was instead interested to hear Kuro out. I need to spell it out. Kenbunshoku Haki, observation Haki. Just like what Luffy has been training us in. Usopp directed his attention to the priest, who was still dancing on his ball like no one's business. This is the first time an enemy used Kenbunshoku Haki. Usopp was definitely pointing out the obvious today. He probably will say the sky is blue next. Luffy. Sorry guys, but I will take a rain check on this one. The captain said and raised his leg, much to the confusion of the crew. Right before they were swept and sent flying down to the forest ground. You guys will thank me later. I wish that Luffy will warn us before trying to kill us. Usopp mumbled as the fall only got dirt on himself, thanks to his physical training and some full-body Busohoku Haki, armament Haki, to help. And when he was about to turn his head, a floating white ball appeared right in front of him, and out of came crab claws. Usopp was able to send it flying with yet another rifle round. I am really starting to hate these things. Then you will wish that dumping will croak. Nijiko answered Usopp and pointed to the priest that was still enjoying the view of the forest and all its spherical glory. The thought of aiming at him from an advantage point did cross Usopp's mind, but that won't change anything since the priest still had Kenbunshoku Haki. A strike from the right with a left hook. That was the voice of the priest, the only one that sounded worse than fingernails on a blackboard. And a kick from the outside using the same leg. Usopp and Nijiko then heard something, Inpakuto, impact, after that was proclaimed. 2 bodies landed near the 2 pirates. It was Sanji and Jin, looking like someone had fired a bazooka right in their faces. Damn it. Not only is that shitball of a priest able to predict our moves, but he got something behind those gloves. Sanji grumbled terribly while Jin had nothing else to add to that. It was time to rethink their plan of attack when Nuki Ashi, pussyfoot maneuver. The Straw Hats on the forest ground heard a familiar voice and Usopp recognized that move. Kuro moved in the same blurs from Usopp's old home island back in the East Blue against the priest, but it was still not enough. The round man jumped off his white ball and it exploded worse than a ton of TNT. The worst that Kuro got was a trip back into the bark of one of the giant trees. Damn, that smarts. Kuro mumbled and painfully wrenched himself free. That was a real shot in the dark, and personally, the mastermind wasn't in the mood try another. Instead he regrouped with the others. They all were watching Usopp with his rifle armed and loaded but not firing off. You got something, sniper? Don't distract me now. Usopp retorted and focused back to whatever he was aiming at. Then he took out a spare rifle silencer, attached it to the barrel and finally shot off his round. Kuro followed the pathway and realized what Usopp had planned. The priest had jumped off the floating ball that exploded in Kuro's face and landed on another where he started to be a sitting duck yet again. But Usopp was not aiming at the priest, it was a floating ball that was hovering near the priest's location. And that one exploded too, with the round priest in its path. It was impressive of his Haki to see our attacks coming, but it seems that he either hadn't trained enough or didn't bother to sense attacks that are not aimed at him directly. Usopp explained his plan, proud of himself to see a weakness that he can manipulate against their common foe. "You fools!" The pirates turned to see the priest getting up from the nasty blast from behind, followed by the terrible fall to the ground. "Think that you have won? It's not over until the fat man sings." The round priest pulled out a baton out of nowhere that had a string attached to the tip, with a dragon made of clouds attached to the other end of the string. Tama Doragon, Tama Dragon. The priest pulled hard on the string to the dragon and sent it down on the ground, stirring up more impact force than before. It was like a missile was launched at the ground. And in the rebound force, the straw hats were scattered, but the round man was only interested in one of them. "Hello, cutie." Nijiko laid at a tree stump, too dazed to even get up. But she could see the dumpling of a priest stare down on her with the most disgusting eyes she ever seen since the crew of fishman pirates that attacked her home village. She shivered at such dark memories that came hard with all the pain she was feeling. "Oh ho ho ho," shaking with excitement. "I am." The priest mocked the young lady and making her feel even more fear. "No, don't." Nijiko couldn't even beg as her voice was struggling to escape her mouth. She could just watch as the priest's hand, the one with the power to send fighters like Sanji and Jin flying with ease, moved closer to her face. "Don't you worry, my dear. It will only be a moment before you will no longer see the light of day ever again." The fat priest laughed and was only inches from using whatever impact he had up his sleeve on Nijiko's face when Koshi Oyaku, burn around the waist. Nijiko saw something that she hadn't in over 8 years, a person brutally and mercilessly slain in front of her eyes. The first that happened with her own mother, taking a bullet for both her and Nami. And now it was the mocking rice ball of a priest who didn't have the stuff to dodge it. "I am getting half a year on the couch for this." Nijiko heard Luffy's voice but was still body numb from the whole experience. "I can't apologize enough for putting you in such danger, Nijiko. I can only bring you to your sister, come on." XXXXX. When the priest was murdered, this set off a chain reaction throughout Upper Yard. High above, in a palace among clouds, a shaded figure lies comfortably on his throne and eating an apple from the fruit bowl nearby. Then he stops in mid-bite yet returns with a dark chuckle. "So, Sattorii had finally got himself killed. He was the weakest one of my soldiers with the arrogance that can only come from inexperience." Elsewhere, 3 more blackened people noticed and with real body movement. Too bad that they all thought the same as the figure on his throne within the Palace of Clouds. Good riddance to bad rubbish. Finally, in a village that's surrounded by clouds, a young girl suddenly emerged from her slumber. She then ran out of her house to show that the village resembled that of American Indians. The other villagers noticed the girl run as if the devil was after her. "One of God's men has died, he was killed." Later, better keep your eyes closed. This has just turned awful. Luffy said to Nijiko, still shaking from the experience with the trials of balls. The rest of the passengers can concur with the surroundings. It was no trial, just a pathway of clouds hovering a good distance above a grass field that was paved with iron spikes. Each had a human skull embedded on the blades. "Just tell me when we find the going merry," Nijiko mumbled with her face buried in Luffy's coat. "I can't even imagine just does my little sister do this." Just then, Luffy's right arm suddenly grabbed Nijiko and pressed her into his chest. Ignoring her cry of surprise, the captain raised his left hand with the palm open just in time for a cannonball to explode without actually harming the boat or the passengers. "Show yourselves. We are with your enemies." Luffy shouted off into the forest surrounding the clearing and, using the same hand as before, caught another cannonball while the arm retracted to absorb the impact force. Immediately, they had company of people that looked somewhat of American Indians wearing some kind of skates on their feet. They moved in a hurry and passed past the boat, but they noticed Luffy's arm and stopped. They then began to mutter between each other, "That guy's arm. It looks weird. It just caught Wiper's round." Luffy then crushed the cannonball and released his arm to original length and faced one of the Indians that carried a bazooka. "So, we met again, with an uglier muggy age." The rest of the crew realized almost immediately that the figure who attacked them when they awoke in the White Sea was back and without wearing the mask. "At least you have a decent name, Wiper." Wiper is a tall, muscular man and sports a pair of little wings on his back. He's covered by various tribal tattoos across his left shoulder and the left side of his face. He has very long dark brown hairs arranged in a mohawk that follows into a segmented braid that goes slightly past his waist, resembling those worn by real-life Native Americans, and he has little spherical earrings. He wears a grass skirt, with a rope belt decorated by 3 small ornaments that look like fangs or claws around his waist. "What the hell? An Akuma no Mi, devil fruit." Wiper mumbled to himself, yet Luffy heard him completely, with a confident smirk. Do you know other boys who can take a hit and stretch his limits like I can? Wiper chewed the stick in his mouth until it snapped in two. He didn't like how this man with a hat made of straw was making light of all this. I will get you back from earlier, but you better get lost. This land was stolen from us and we are getting it back. Wiper announced to the Straw Hats. We also are getting back what was stolen from us, so we will stay out of your way if you do the same. Ta, Luffy waved as their ship eventually moved out of sight from the strange Indians. Thankfully, they were too reoccupied to follow the Straw Hats. They had other plans and no time to waste on anyone else. XXXXX eventually, there she is. Luffy pointed out into the distance. It was a large altar that was surrounded by the same clouds they had been sailing on, with the Going Merry perched like a sacrifice. They all wasted no time hurrying over to the ship, even ignoring the sharks that tried to eat them alive. They were all left to dye the clouds red. Stop! Luffy suddenly shouted. He even violently tugged at the boat to turn 90 degrees and come to a halt. Ignoring the complaints of his crew, Luffy took a branch from who knows where and tossed it slightly forward. The sight of the branch being sliced into pieces while in midair silenced his crewmates. Keep the boat here. I will take care of this. Luffy commanded while not even facing his crew and jumped off without waiting for a response. The Straw Hats heard that voice before and they won't dare disobey. They just watched as Luffy apparently jumped through the air as if the atmosphere was solid. But a closer look revealed that it was all strings. Luffy must have used both common forms of haki to know where the strings are and to harden his footwear to not get cut by them. Then they heard a laugh coming from in the distance. Fools! Thought you can match one of God's priests. Someone was close to the altar and had the attitude of a man who trashed his competition. Usopp then saw something that made his blood boil. Beaten bodies of a few of the crew and Chopper was being held by his throat with the hand of this priest. I am Shira of the string clouds that litter this ocean. Ready to bind anything that moves. Ready for my kill. Shira resembles a stereotypical aviator from the early 1900s. He has a thin, pointed mustache that splits into two parts. On his head there is an aviator hat decorated with wings, and a pair of goggles on the front. His attire is composed of an orange fur-lined jacket, with brown swollen sleeves decorated by beige spots. Loose matching orange pants held up by a belt, fur-lined gloves and boots, and a purple scarf around his neck. And on his back is a pair of typical wings, a standard feature of all the inhabitants of Skypia. Finally, he was riding a gigantic bird that he named Fuza. Fuza is a purple feathered bird with gigantic wings, on its enormous body. Fuza is large enough to carry a full-grown man. It has red feathers around its neck. Its head is white, has a sharpened beak and the eyes are yellow-colored. Its tail is further purple-colored with lighter extensions to it. The claws underneath its legs are white, with sharp black nails. And what are you fools going to do about? Shira couldn't say another word when pain surged throughout his body. Then he felt hot. A streak of searing heat had cut through his torso and fired his nerves, as well as scorching his heart. It was too much for him and he flew to the clouds below. All the while, Luffy stayed on the giant bird in still flight, with its wings as the only thing on it moving. Down below, eyes from the clearing and from the colossal trees watched such a swift, brutal kill. Luffy looked like the new predator in town as he looked down on the bird still flying. What to do with you? Koshi Oyaku. Burn around the waist. Nijiko saw something that she hadn't in over 8 years. A person brutally and mercilessly slain in front of her eyes. The first that happened with her own mother, taking a bullet for both her and Nami. And now it was the mocking rice ball of a priest who knew it was coming but didn't have the stuff to dodge it. I am getting half a year on the couch for this. Nijiko heard Luffy's voice but was still body numb from the whole experience. I can't apologize enough for putting you in such danger, Nijiko. I can only bring you to your sister, come on. XXXXX, I will get you back from earlier but you better get lost. This land was stolen from us and we are getting it back. Wiper announced to the Straw Hats. We also are getting back what was stolen from us, so we will stay out of your way if you do the same. Ta, Luffy waved as their ship eventually moved out of sight from the strange Indians. Thankfully, they were too reoccupied to follow the Straw Hats. They had other plans and no time to waste on anyone else. XXXXX, and what are you fools going to do about? Shira couldn't say another word when pain surged throughout his body. Then he felt hot. A streak of searing heat had cut through his torso and fired his nerves, as well as scorching his heart. It was too much for him and he flew to the clouds below. All the while, Luffy stayed on the giant bird in still flight, with its wings as the only thing on it moving. Down below, eyes from the clearing and from the colossal trees watched such a swift, brutal kill. Luffy looked like the new predator in town as he looked down on the bird still flying. What to do with you? I see. Luffy spoke with his chin scratched by his right hand while Chopper looked over the large bird. A flame dial attached to the top of her throat in order to spew flames which burned the Going Merry. All the while, the large-than-life bird tried to avoid Luffy's gaze out of fear and shame. Just make sure she doesn't burn anything else unless I say so. I'm going to see about dinner tonight from Sanji. Luffy, The straw hat wearing captain knew that voice and turned to his lover. "Sorry, I had to make sure you were still here. It was just so scary." Nami had a little tear in her eyes as she gently tackled her boyfriend. "And thanks again for looking after my sister." "Not a problem, especially for you, Nami." Luffy comforted her. "Now how about we find out when dinner is ready? We can sit by the fire and relax for a bit." Nami nodded, and so they did. "You still surprised me when you found out where this entire forest came from. I haven't seen you so excited like that in a while." "Crazy, huh? To think that this was half of the island of Jaya that connects to the other half by the house where the old man lives." Nami mumbled, enjoying the embrace of her boyfriend very much. "If we find the city of gold, then Noland was telling the truth all along. Later, I still say you should try it. At least have some protein to help those muscles grow," Luffy told Nami, sitting while munching on what seemed to be cooked cloud shark meat. His girlfriend just shook her head at the slowest pace. "Nah, I will rather watch these grow." Luffy actually stopped in mid-bite and fought the urge to roll his eyes, whether Nami will see that or not. He just twitched his eyebrow and went back to his food. "Whatever." Luffy practically grumbled while food was still in his mouth. "So, what do we have so far, you guys?" First things, Usopp spoke with a teacher's baton in hand and somehow a blackboard right behind him. He was trying to look like a leader briefing his team. "We know that among the dozens of soldiers in God's army, there were 4 officers that lead right under the boss himself. We actually ran into one of those jerks when we tried one of those paths to God's trials, the one with the spheres," Sanji added. His idea of a trial was to litter the forest with white spheres with lethal surprises inside each one while tempting us to try and hit him. And he actually used our captain's haki to see our attacks before we started to use them. It was all shit and games for that talking rice ball until our sniper got a good hit. Kuro was actually eating a rice ball while relaxed among the straw hats. Apparently one of the hidden weaknesses to this haki was that it is useless to predict attacks that were not aimed at the user. He just never counted on one of his own spheres behind used against him. Another one of those officers tried to attack the Going Merry and I tried to fight him with Big Brother's training until I suddenly got tangled in something I couldn't see. All I could witness was him taunting and ready to burn our ship. Chopper took his turn and took a rather depressed tone near the ending. Aside from these officers and their skill in haki, we did some exploring of this upper yard. We made a discovery that confirms that this used to be part of the Jaya Island and somehow ended up here over 10,000 feet above sea level. Robin took things in another direction while staying on topic. So there really was a city of gold, but instead of being in the Grand Line when Noland returned, it was here. Luffy commented while rubbing his chin hairs. This is a big discovery and yet a big disappointment too. Before anyone could question, we had hoped to find the city of gold to prove to the world that Noland never lied, but who is to believe us that it is in the sky? I am sure that Mr. Cricket from Jaya will still appreciate the truth in any way we can tell him. Robin responded and no one said another word. After a while of just eating in silence, they started to make a plan. Chopper and a few more will remain with the Going Merry and find out a way to return the scout ship back to their main ship back at Angel Beach. The others will explore the opposite side of the forest to try and find the city of gold. Based on the ugly encounters lately, it is clear that there are plenty of enemies that invest upper yard, so the Straw Hats will have to keep their senses sharp. There was a war down below in Alabastra and now, there is one brewing high in the heavens. And once again, the Straw Hats have walked right into the middle of it. XXXXX. It was a real surprise that there was no attack when they were sleeping that night. What really shocked them was the state of the Going Merry. All the signs point to, someone worked on the Going Merry last night. But who? Usopp asked as he practically inspected every square inch of the scout ship. I mean, this is appreciated, but I thought we were the only ones in the forest. While the others were scratching their heads, Kaio was trying to catch up with her boyfriend so that he doesn't bang his head on something by accident. Also, Luffy was scratching his chin while deep in thought. Mr. Captain, you have something? Robin queered, and that successfully got everyone's attention to Luffy. The man himself didn't seem to be bothered by this and remained in thought before answering. It is just that this reminds me of a legend my old mentor told me whenever he and his crew will camp out on a nearby island. He always loved to camp. Before anyone could respond, he told me the legend of a mysterious being that, if witnessed, will look like a silhouette child wearing a raincoat with a hammer in hand. These beings usually appear to repair a ship while the crew were sound asleep. But they are rarely seen, so they remained a legend. Do you still believe it then? Zoro asked. Because I don't see why we are wasting time. I thought we made a plan last night. As grumpy as that may be, he does have a point. Fine, Zoro. Luffy let out a huff. Guys, get the Going Merry back to Angel Beach while the rest of us go and look for the city of gold. XXXXX. Usopp would never let the Going Merry out of his sights as soon as he got it back, so he stayed with it. Kaya felt both amused and flattered since she was the one who supplied the scout ship to say thank you. Even if the Straw Hats already had a ship to sail, INSD has a boyfriend who treats her ship like it was herself. Alvida, Nijiko and Georgia joined in because they felt sorry for Kaya, and Sanji of course wanted to protect the girls. Usopp made sure that the cook keeps his hands to himself. Everyone else left with various directions to scan the upper yard for the City of Gold. You know that you can bang your head by riding my shoulders, right Nami? Luffy asked with concern and a hint of annoyance that his girlfriend had gone all 5-year-old on him by hitching a ride. Don't worry Luffy, I have my eyes out, yep, 5 years old. But Luffy didn't have the nerve to say so. Besides, even when I am heavy you will still carry me, right? Luffy just felt red to the face and steam escaped his ears. Sure, but they will get a turn too. Luffy responded and Nami was just glad that her boyfriend got the general message. After she had her fun, Nami jumped down to the same foot level as Luffy and walked by him until the couple stopped and turned to see Wiper, standing staring them down. I thought that you, Blue Sea Dwellers, will leave this land. It belongs to us. I have heard that before and we are no interested in fighting for land. Luffy responded. We are looking for a city of gold here in Upper Yard. You can have this land, we are just here to explore. Luffy said while his hand was on his rapier and the other was making sure that his girlfriend was besides him. Wiper's ugly mug creeped her out. That just means you are still trespassing, and I wish not to waste my time and energy in killing you. I have to save it for my true enemy. Wiper said and was about to leave when he happened to notice something big moving along the tree he was aiming at. You better leave that alone. Luffy spoke up again. Nola is a little grouchy with all our noise. Both Wiper and Nami widened their eyes at what could only be the largest snake they ever seen. In another part of the forest, that's where we just came, Cactus Head. Kuro said in embarrassment that his companion suddenly walked the other way. Robin looked back and found it amusing, with her giggle into her little hand. Zoro coughed in embarrassment and made a lame excuse. I'm only impressed that this stupid habit doesn't hinder your battle prowess. And another thing, Kuro trailed off. Well, got any more to nag me about? Zoro turned his attention to whatever has silenced the ex-captain and swallowed his words too. And you will to when you gaze upon what could only be a house-sized south bird. With the going merry, it's amazing, such sloppy work, but the girl can still sail. Usopp commented about the little scout ship. We know, you said that for the umpteenth time. Sanji spoke to the sniper with disdain but switched to his lovesick self as he was carrying trays with tea and sweets. Refreshments for lovely ladies on this lovely day. Just bought them on the table and get back to watch duty. Kaya responded with disinterest. And you too Usopp-kun. The sniper stiffened to attention. Remember, Sanji is our eyes on the ship and you are the eyes in the sky. Umi-kun is our eyes in the sea, isn't that right boy? Kaya got out of her beach chair and leaned over the railing where the former lord of the coast from the East Blue popped out. Somehow, he had the look of a little boy blushing to the praise of a beautiful woman. It was a cute sight and Kaya had to hold a giggle back to not give the wrong idea to her boyfriend and the cook. Both of them seemed to be protective of her for their own reasons. But it wasn't Umi Tente that got their senses on alert, it was. Greeting intruders. We have found your vessel that you stole from us to be our sacrifice to God Almighty. The Straw Hats got on tense and spotted a strange pair dancing on the opposite railing. And we have been sent to take it back, as well as revenge. These two looked a lot like the dumpling priest, Sattorii. In yet another part of the forest, I swear that you two are practically dating each other. Jin spoke with a tone that was either amusement or annoyance. It was because Frank and Carol were walking like they were glued to each other. Why don't you two kiss and quiet with the suspense? Get yourself a girlfriend, Jin. Then we can talk, whenever that happens. Frank retorted, which got Carol to giggle at Jin's impossibly red face. And just when he looked like he was going to scream back. Guys. We need to be quieter or danger will find us. And who knows what could be lurking in this forest. Chopper felt like his big brother put him in charge, so he tried to keep peace between the group. But before his companions could respond. It's far too late to worry about that, intruders. Bah, the Straw Hats turned to see what seemed to be a human dressed in strange white robes, weird shoes and goat horns on his head. God Almighty knew you were here when you invaded our clouds. Bah. And now that you are here on our holy land, it is time for your death, by our hands. Bah. That strange human proclaimed and many more appeared from behind the giant trees. XXXXX meanwhile, somewhere made mostly of clouds. Hello, the two of us are here. A pair of large figures entered through a gate to what looked to be an open field of clouds that had some kind of fancy overhang and bed made for an emperor on the far side. And why have been summoned when there is a foolish tribe trespassing that we could be killing? Our great ruler, our god has summoned all of us here priests. He has his reasons for some the two of you. Lord Om and Gedasu. Answered one of the unnamed subjects with a full beard and dressed in a Greek-style robe answered to the pair waiting rather impatiently. Om is a tall, bald, muscular, and bearded man. Like the other inhabitants of Skypia, he has a pair of small wings sprouting from his back. He's always seen wearing a pair of sunglasses with point-like extensions on both sides. His right arm is covered with tattoos. The one on his wrist, in particular, resembles a bracelet. His attire consists of a dark green A shirt, loose gray pants with many pockets and what look like zips under his knees, a long and flowing white sash around his waist, similar to the one worn by his master, and dark leather boots with bandages around the soles. He is also carrying a rather interesting weapon, a massive sword with an extra-large hilt. "Why are we MMPH?" The other, Gedatsu, spoke before he suddenly sucked in his lips, which prevented him from speaking clearly. Gedatsu is a tall, dark-skinned man. He has an unusual hairstyle, with a row of upward-pointing tufts or Rasta-styled dreadlocks from ear to ear. He has a typical bilkin pair of wings on his back. He was seen wearing a matching purple jacket and pants, black gloves and shoes, a pink shirt, and a blue tie-like scarf around his neck. He sports a large, white tissue belt around his waist with a red circle in his center, resembling the Japanese flag. "Lord Gedatsu, if you want to speak then don't suck in your lips." That same subject pointed out, as if this was a comedy skit. The dark-skinned priest just had a silent, shocked face which freed his lips. "How disgraceful for one of God's 4 commanders." Om spoke, and not like when Gedatsu did his ridiculous habit. "And for the last time, where is he?" Om will regret asking that when both he and Gedatsu were shocked by a sudden thunderbolt. The bearded subject and the others in robes along with a collection of stunning women watched as that streak of lightning started to backflip like a trained acrobat before forming something of a human body that landed on the throne. "He is here. God Enel has arrived, mortals." Enel is a tall, muscular man with light hair covered by a simple white bandana. He has long earlobes weighted down by diamond-shaped gold earrings that stretch all the way to his chest. He wears loose, orange pants with a black pattern on them, and around his waist there is a blue, flowing sash, holding up a light blue veil. He wears gold bracelets on both his arms as well as gold anklets on his legs, and 2 on his bigger toes. His nose has many lines running horizontally across it. His earlobes are extremely long, extending to his torso. He also holds 4 large tomo drums attached via a large ring to his back, instead of the regular Skypian wings. What an entrance, only done by God. Gedatsu tried to act tough, but his act of seeming rubbing his arms together made him look more ridiculous. "So why are we here?" "Lord Gedatsu, if you want to cross your arms then do as so." That same subject did it properly, which got the bumbling priest to get a shocked face again. That made Om groan in embarrassment yet again, since he has to share a rank with that fool. But Enel just laughed without a care in the world, somehow amused by Gedatsu's ridiculous habit. "Oh, I was bored, that's all." Enel finally answered while playing with an apple. "But also because of something that I am sure that the 2 of you already noticed. Shira and Sattorii apparently have been slain, and by the same intruder to our land." Sattorii was always the arrogant one with clear inexperience, but Shira, "I never thought that airhead will ever go down." Om responded with clear disdain for the former but a slight respect for the latter. Gedatsu just sucked on his lips once again, and the bearded subject pointed it out again. "Of course, as expected to hear from my truly strongest commander." Enel spoke back. "Those 2 will not be missed, as God's power will never be damaged or defied." Enel then whispered to the handmaidens to peel him an apple to eat. "Yet what I truly wanted to announce is that the vessel has been completed. It will time to leave for the land that gods live in, the fairy Vareth."